Danger. The emergency destruct system is now activated.
Welcome to the Lorehounds. We're your guides to, normally it's xenomorphically induced terror, but I don't know. No, Holly's doing some really weird shit with this episode, so no Holly weirdness. I'm your host, David, and this is our coverage of Alien Earth, Season 1, Episode 3, Metamorphosis. Given that we're running multiple shows right now, we're doing Alien Earth Squadron style, kind of like we did for Andor. John's finishing up with Foundation. He and Marilyn are covering that. Alicia is just starting up with Peacemaker, and that's with Jean and Aaron. So each week I'm going to have a different set of co-hosts. And my co-hosts this week are Ian from the Captain's Pod and Mark from Nevermind the Music. Ian, welcome. How you doing?
Hello, I'm very good. How are you?
Great to see you. Thanks for jumping on with this.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. Mark, how are you doing?
I am good, and I am glad to not miss out on this group contribution. I had major, I don't know what FOMO is, fear of missing out. What is the retrospective, oh crap, I missed out? Because I watched Andor about 3 weeks later than everybody else and was like, oh man, I really wanted to be on that, and I have so much to say, and they had this conversation 3 weeks ago. But so glad to be a part of this chapter.
I tell you what, I'll do a rewatch later this year, a little bit later this year, and then maybe you and I can do a retrospective.
Cool.
Because I'd love to get some of your thoughts on it. So, all right, spoiler warnings for all things aliens ever. We're recording this on a Friday. The episodes usually come out on Tuesday in the United States. So I know it's a little bit later, but it's just what's working out. So expect that for the season going forward. I don't have my schedule up in front of me, so I got to remember who's coming in next, but I'll announce that at the end of the podcast. Actually, I have it right here. Oh, yeah, it's Duve71 and Brian8063. A couple of our Lore Master subscribers are going to join me for episode 4. Reminder that you can send feedback to avp@thelorehounds.com. Send voicemails, send emails as well. This show is firing on a lot of different cylinders. And I know we'll talk about this, but there's some folks who are kind of bouncing off the show. And so I want to hear your critiques as much as we want to hear your praises. Remember that we have a Discord server and we have channels set up for each episode. The Discord thing is a little weird sometimes to follow the sub channels. So just shout out in the support channel or in the general welcome channel, and somebody will help you get oriented to which episode for which channel. As always, if you have something nice to say, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. And if you like what the Lorehounds do and you want to support independent podcasters, we'd love to have your subscription, either Patreon or Supercast. There are links to everything in the show notes. There's a link tree. It has the Discord, all that stuff. So let's start off. Gentlemen, I have a little bit of something to set the mood for us.
Mother Earth is pregnant for the 3rd time, for y'all have knocked her up. I have tasted the maggots in the mind of the universe. I was not offended, for I knew I had to rise above it all or drown in my own shit.
That's the opening from Maggot Brain by Funkadelic. We're going to talk about that later. But Ian, I just had to play that because it's such a part of this episode. But Ian, what did you think? What are your hot takes for episode 3?
Oh my gosh. Can I give you hot takes for everything?
Sure, yeah. Especially since you guys are coming in at this point. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you guys could just sit back for the next 90 minutes.
Sure, no problem.
I've got it from here.
We'll break the
problem with
what's that?
The round robin, right? Like in seven episodes, you're going to have someone. Can I talk episode 1? 10 minutes before we get in.
Exactly,
it's going to happen. I am really, really enjoying this show. I'm specifically. I think my biggest hot take is that I am falling madly in love with Timothy Oliphant, codename Lieutenant Commander Data, codename Roy. He's just oozing charisma. And I'm not sure if an android is supposed to ooze charisma specifically.
Maybe ooze milky-like
definitely,
substances?
I just want to cup that milk and harness it and turn it into a perfume that I can market and sell to everybody. I love him as an actor. I was a little bit hesitant when a big name is attached to a project like this. Is that just a bit of stunt casting? But he is captivating me completely. Loving the themes that Noah Hawley's putting across so deliberately. It's not just an alien, here's why we love alien schlock fest, fighty, stabby, sci-fi stuff. There are themes here and he's executing themes and I think he knows what he's doing. I think he has a plan. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving all of that. I have a smidgen bit of resistance to this. If I have one negative, the oneness of Wendy and that kind of stereotype of the prodigal child that is the future of everything. My instinct after episode 1 was, we have done this so many times, like the future of everything, the savior.
Yeah.
However, Sydney Chandler just bringing me right back in every time I think that I'm like, I've seen this story before. Her performance overlaid with the themes that Noah Hawley is bringing together, I'm sucked in all the way. And it's in a franchise that I love. I'm just like, I'm hoping one day I get this from Star Trek again. But he's doing magic with Alien, and it just makes me long for that Star Trek movie that we never got from him.
Yeah. And I didn't do this, but why don't you give a word about the Captain's Pod, which is your podcast that we know each other from. So just say a quick word about Captain's Pod.
That is my love child. I take my partner Danae, who is a relapsed Trek fan, through Star Trek to try and like force feed her the best and worst Star Trek. So yeah, Captain's Pod, that's where you'll find me talking about Star Trek, and a little bit more Star Trek.
And Captain's Pod and the Lorehounds are friends.
Yes, very deep friends.
Talking about all kinds of different fun projects that we're going to be working on together in the future. Yeah. Mark, say really quick a quick word about Nevermind the Music, and then give us your hot takes for episode 3 and in the whole season.
For sure. Real quick, before I do that, Ian, what's your alien background? Not
Good
lowercase a alien, but capital A alien. Have you seen everything? Are you fully caught up in the mythos?
Oh, I've seen everything, and I have seen Alien versus Predator Requiem, I think 5 times. Not out of pleasure, but for my job. So yeah, I'm pretty well versed on everything. I love this franchise. I am a Prometheus apologist. I am a what's the one that came after that?
Covenant.
I'm a Covenant enthusiast, even though I couldn't remember the name of it. But yeah, I really adore this franchise. Yeah, even the lesser elements of it, I still find some joy.
All right, Mark, and Nevermind the Music. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so yeah, Nevermind the Music. Me and co-host Nicole talk about music and psychology. I'm a composer, songwriter, music professor. She is a relapsed flautist, but a psychology professor. And
you guys teach at the same school.
We actually met teaching at the same school, but she has since moved on to bigger and better places elsewhere. So, yeah, our main episodes will grab one iconic, usually kind of pop song, and I'll take it from a songwriting perspective. She'll take it from a psych perspective. And then we have fun in the cracks. And our doing random stuff, and second season's about to start.
Amazing.
Which is going to have guests and all sorts of cool, fun things like that. We've already got some folks lined up that I think Lorehounds are going to be digging.
And you had you were kind of not shopping your podcast around, but you were looking for some advice for some podcasts that you were connected to. And when we heard your demos, we're like, oh, these are our people. And so we kind of brought you in as one of our affiliates because we were so excited by your format and the content that you guys talk about. We just love Nevermind Music so much. So,
and it's rubbed off because we just recorded yesterday our last feedback episode of the first season, and we were recording for 2 hours. It's not the final episode's more like an hour and a half. I cut some of the transitions, but
brilliant.
Oh my! I was like, oh, now we're Lorehounds. Gone are the days of the 30-minute episodes. So
it's amazing how quickly those disappear when you really get into podcasting. We'll do this in 20 minutes. It'll be efficient and great.
Yeah. It's also amazing how those disappear when you're not trying to record 4 episodes in a day to finish them before this. Like now second season, we're recording as we go instead of preloading everything. Anyway, so me with Alien, I have some hot takes. I am not a super fan of Alien. I think just based on my generational proximity, I think the first one I saw was Alien 3, which is a weird introduction.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, whoa, why is the lady from Ghostbusters jumping into this pit of lava or whatever?
Oh, no.
But I've gone back and seen, an Alien Resurrection was like a high school double date kind of, let's go check it out kind of. But I've since seen the first 4 multiple times, really like, obviously, the first 2. I enjoyed Prometheus, though I'm going to say I haven't seen it since it came out. And so I'm going to have some questions when we get to talk about all the different species. Like, y'all have to remind me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I sadly have fallen off since then. I haven't seen Covenant, haven't seen Romulus. I've meant to, just hasn't happened. So I'm coming at this maybe as a representative of a different species of fan who's like, well, I've seen Alien and Aliens, but so I remember that stuff a lot better than I remember anything about. I remember the engineers as a concept, and but I don't know everything about David 8 and all that stuff. So,
well, I think
David
it works
Lorehound.
for this because Hawley. Well, it's hard to make anything alien that doesn't have some elements or details from Covenant and Prometheus. This show is not actively working on that storyline, like a parallel universe storyline. So you can take this. I think this is for anybody.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with the Alien franchise, I think you can literally start with this show and then go to 79 and then 86 and go forward from there.
You might be more representative of the wider audience that's actually watching the show, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some of them have seen Romulus where I haven't, but
that's fine.
Yeah, so where am I with this show? I love this show. Like, so far, it's been really fun to watch. I love that it's got this lived-in 70s practical effect feel with the sets and the costumes and the creatures. It feels like sci-fi, like they're engaging with the science fiction elements that feel very appropriate for the alien universe, so to speak, but also appropriate for 2025, dealing with AI and transhumanism and all these things that feel also very Lorehounds adjacent. And in the same way that Foundation and Andor for a fantasy series, really, right? Like Star Wars is much more fantasy. They're bringing in science fiction in there in certain elements that are speculative fiction elements that I really love in this show. Can I just kind of drop some random observations about the specifics of the first few episodes? Nothing really about third.
Yeah, go for it.
Tool is not arena rock. Neither is Black Sabbath.
Fair.
Black Sabbath is metal, like early unholy trinity of heavy metal. Tool, Stinkfist is, progressive metal, alternative metal. That song also, if you talk about Tool from a visual palette, which I don't really think you all really talked about, H.R. Giger?
Yeah, Giger.
I'm not sure. Giger is all over that aesthetic. So the biomechanical art, I don't think Giger did any of the art for their albums. But if you look at the concept art for almost all of their records have people with synthetic parts of their body and kind of body horror elements. And the guitarist of the band, Adam Jones, is also like the art director of the band. Like he directs the music videos and directs the concept artists and things like that. And his aesthetic, like the Stink of this video is really disturbing in a way that feels like an homage to the body horror, sort of terror sexual aspects of
which is Giger
of Alien.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because I don't think you really covered it. Now that song specifically, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to add, I'm going to offer something which, to help make up for some of the Andor FOMO. at the end of the season, maybe what we should do is come back and look at all of the songs that Holly used that were popular songs out of this and really do an interesting conversation around the meanings and the bands and that kind of stuff. I could see a really rich conversation there.
Yeah, I'll drop it for now, David. I get the hint. But yeah, but yeah, totally.
It wasn't a hint. I'm truly excited. Like, I want to talk about every single one of these songs and artists.
David, why do you suck so much? Why did you get that so wrong in the first episode?
But no, it's not that there's anything wrong. It's just that there's a lot there. Like Stinkfist is also a pretty horrific song if you think about the title, sort of just the imagery of it. And it's not horrific. Like, I'm not kink shaming anybody, but it's portrayed as an extreme sort of concept. So, okay, next random observations. I just want, because Ian's on the pod, there's something very Star Trek about the 22nd century obsession with 20th century pop culture and art. Whether it's Ice Age, as if the kids in 2105 or whenever this would have happened in the flashback are watching Ice Age. Mm-hmm. And also Reggie Jackson, right, as this thing that would be maybe like my parents' generation of baseball watching would be then passed on. There's something totally absurd about that, but that feels like it's in keeping with the tradition of sci-fi, of Brahms in the captain's quarters or whatever Picard's listening to, that I really love. But it also made me thinking, not to get too kind of mushy about this, but the idea of it always being connected to a father, and this sort of trope of, oh, my dad was obsessed with baseball and there's this memory that I'm chasing. And I see this baseball.
It's a trope.
And
totally.
This trope. And it made me just think about my own life, where, like, I think back to my childhood and my dad was like, hey, let's go watch baseball. Whereas now it's my kid going, Dad, can we watch baseball? Dad, can we play baseball? Dad, can we go to a baseball game? And it's like, what's that going to do to the generational nostalgia getting flipped on its head? As a parent, it's just kind of confusing to watch. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that, but it's like, what happens with nostalgia when things flip backwards? Not inspired by the show, really, but
I think it's an interesting point too, because when kids are driving it, and it's not us, but we're following their lead,
right? And I think that's a generational difference in parenting. Is that like there's Ezra Klein from New York Times has podcasts about this, that like the modern generation of parenting, it's not that we're helicoptering, it's that we're constantly engaging with our kids and kind of draining. Like his writing on and talking about it sometimes is, what is this going to do to mental illness in parents? Like, oh, we're driving ourselves crazy, but we're meeting our kids where they are now in a way that codes differently. What's the fiction in 30 years going to be? Whereas we're looking back with like the Cats in the Cradle kind of, oh, I always was chasing my dad, trying to get him to pay attention to me, but now is it like,
I think it's a really
my dad was always trying to play Mario Kart with me. Like, is it just creating different fiction now? I don't know. Anyways.
I think it's a really good point, because a lot of Gen X childhood was the fact that not only were we free range, but we couldn't get our parents to show up for the baseball games and all of that kind of stuff.
Right. It's created tropes, reinforced tropes in fiction. I'm really fascinated with whether those tropes will flip in 20 years. Which
I love it.
This really has nothing to do with the show, except that it's inspired by that show. So, all right, can I a few more hot takes before I go on? These aren't hot takes as much as philosophical music.
Quick, I think Noah Hawley is definitely processing some of his own parenting
100%
through the show. So I don't think that's as disconnected a thought as you might think. I think he's doing a lot of parental work and therapy through this show.
The flashback scenes of Joe and his father are Noah Hawley and his real life son.
Yeah.
Wow. Right. That's fascinating. And it's showing it's top down there, right? Like the memories coming from the dad to the son, right? And sorry, what's his age range? Do we know?
He's younger than me, older than you.
So like young Gen Xer or something like that. Or
late. I think he's he's late. He's definitely, I think you're right. Young Gen X might be right.
Late 70s birthday or something. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So
let me look that up
again. Same kind of generational way that we were all reared in some way, especially in terms of pop culture, I think.
Oh shit, he's older than me. He's 58,
Oh.
born in 67.
He just carries it really well, maybe.
He does.
57.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
he is
69.
57, not born in 69. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's born 67.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. So bringing it to my own sort of expertise, for lack of a better term, I was fascinated by the idea of the competing corporate formats of transhumanism. And I know they're not completely monopolized by any one corporation, in the sense that it appears that Prodigy has access to the creation of synths in addition to the creation of hybrids. It doesn't seem like, well, the Wayland creates the cyborgs and Utani creates the synths. It doesn't seem bifurcated, except for the fact that hybrids appear to only be, as of now, creatable by Prodigy.
Correct.
What this got to me thinking, I mean, there's so many questions about that, but one, and this doesn't have to do with my expertise, I'll get there, but we don't have hybrids in the main series, do we?
No.
No. So
Nor do we
appearance.
Nor do we have aliens running overrunning Earth, right? So that tells us something, and nor do we have Prodigy.
Correct.
Right? So that tells us something about the plot, right? And this is a prequel, so obviously you come in expecting that certain things have to happen or not happen. But what does that tell us also about the transhuman philosophy of this, like of what it means to be human? Like, what can we say as we watch the rest of this season or these seasons, like the idea of what is human, who is human, if the hybrids are all gone by the end of this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm just watching that, I guess.
Cool.
From a philosophical perspective.
I love it.
But I'm also thinking about this related to music technology. And I'm sorry, I'm almost done here. And I know that sounds weird. If we have humans...
You're among friends, Mark. Let your
Go
freak
off.
flag.
Absolutely.
Humans, cyborgs, synths, hybrids, right? Acoustic, thousands of years of human history instruments.
Oh,
right?
I love this. I love where you're going with this.
Electrical amplification of those instruments. Think electric piano, think organ, think, although organs, some of them are synths. Think electric guitar, right? Electric bass. Synthesizers, which is to say a digital or analog, electronically generated sound.
Electrical, right? Electrical impulse generated sound.
Electrical impulse. Electrical pulses generating the waveform, or a computer generating the waves. And then fourth, a sampler, which is a machine playing a recording of something that might exist in the world.
That's almost too perfect.
It's almost too, but then it creates questions, right? Because we can think of the technology itself. So think acoustic is out in the real world, vibrating, creating actual sound. Electric instruments also doing that, but being boosted by electricity, right? So maybe that's a cyborg, maybe that's a hybrid. I don't know. Let's come back to that. A synthesizer completely only exists in the sort of electronic space, maybe not digital, but electronic space. But then a sampler, which is a digital usually, but technically possible also analog recreation of something that exists in the rest of the world. But then we could say, okay, does one of those correspond to humanity? Let's say the acoustic instrument. Is an electric instrument a cyborg because it's powered humanity? Is a synthesizer a synth? Well, I mean, they're telling us that. And is a sampler a recorded human put into a digital format? And what can we talk about the modern music industry going through these transitions? But also, you can control a sampler or a synthesizer via a human playing it on a keyboard, or you can control it with a computer where the human completely loses control. And so you could program that, or you could make an AI that plays it. And so it's making me think like the modern music industry, modern pop culture as AIs take over, but is Kirsch, right?
Kirsch, yep.
Is he purely AI? Is he controlled by a human? Is Wendy a sampler that's being played by a person, or is she a sampler that's being controlled by herself, her AI? Like I don't know what any of this means, but I'm watching it and I couldn't help but immediately think when they queued up the title cards with 4 different kind of types, and I'm going, that mixes up so much with the struggles that we have kind of with finding humanity in modern art. And it's probably not just audio, it's probably visual photography and things like that too. Yeah. Cool.
I feel like
did I go too far?
I'm in the dorm room.
Yeah.
Here, take the joint.
Next time I have a request, can you pair me with somebody less intelligent? Because I like Star Trek and I like aliens. And it's going to be musical knowledge bombs that are just, it's an incredible comparison.
This is the awesome part where I just get to ask questions, though I don't actually have any answers or explanations.
Right? It's amazing.
It starts.
So anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm really digging the way that the show is interacting with modern society and in thought-provoking ways. So yeah, we can move on.
I'm so glad you agreed to come on the show, Mark, because you always have these great takes and I love it. So thank you. I feel the same as Ian, like, oh, I liked it.
I like arena music.
I'm just don't forget the Nicole and I have talked about this a lot, the fraud complex. It's like,
yes,
well, crap, I haven't seen much Aliens, so I better come with some cool insights that none of them thought about, because the moment they start talking about Covenant.
Fair enough. Well, I think both of you have hit on some things tangentially, and I read some comments in our Discord where the show isn't working for a couple of people. And I can totally get where those critiques are coming from. And I was thinking about that today, and I was using a food comparison metaphor. And I was thinking, oh, well, maybe this is like going to a molecular gastronomy restaurant where you're looking at the plate and you're going, what is this? It's some foam and it's some weird shape thing. And so your eyes aren't processing it like food, but then you taste it and you're like, whoa, I've never tasted that texture before. I've never that flavor or that combination. So I could totally get why some people are like, oh, this is weird. It's not working for me.
This eyeball with 8 legs tastes delicious once you get past that it's an eyeball with 8 legs.
Exactly. A couple of things about this episode. Babu Sise, breakout actor of this show as Morrow, the security officer from the Maginot. So good. And the scene with him and the kids and Timothy Oliphant was just outstanding. The way that Oliphant sort of rolls in this very calm and collected. He's got a gun. I can see that. Just absolutely.
I'm the neighbor.
Yes.
So good.
So good. And then the acting of Ardesh Gurov and Jonathan Ajaje, who play Smiley and Smee. And I just Slightly, not Smiley. Slightly and Smee. Just incredible. That whole scene was my favorite of the series so far. And it's those little funny moments that I think make the show palatable. We talked often about season 1 of House of the Dragon. There was no humor in it. And so by the end of an episode and by the end of the season, you're just feeling dire and just worn down and dark.
There's no Tyrion to bring the wine.
Exactly. And so with the Lost Boys and the acting, and there's some other things too, it brings that levity that balances the heaviness. And so that's a hard balance to strike. So I think he's doing that really well.
It's a risk too, because Tyrion at least is really sarcastic and nihilistic and biting and cursing and stuff. These guys are just goofballs. Like, it's a risk, and it works so well. And their timing, their comedic timing, their physical acting.
Yeah.
Y'all have talked about that. Just the way they move in space. It's so silly, but so works. And when you're playing off of like Oliphant's character, it works. Or Morrow in the same space for them to still work and not feel like they're in the wrong movie, the wrong show is really impressive, because I could see the execution not working in a lesser
big
show.
risk for if this goes wrong, if this wasn't done just right, absolutely could be a disaster of a television show. So a couple other little things. So that on top of, then you would get the deep cuts. We get the Peter Pan of it all, Ghost in the Machine, which we're going to talk about, not the movie, but a book. There's just all these deeper, the comparisons to the human condition. So there's this incredible depth, visual deliciousness. We're going to talk about that scene too, Ian, that you pointed out with the diopter lens. So good.
My film nerd got out and
got you. So it's just hitting on all levels, and Hawley knows what he's doing, and he's doing it very confidently, and he's doing something that he's the closest thing we have to an auteur director in television, or one of there. There's a few, but he's just really playing with the form. He's really playing with the storyline, the depths. It's wild. I want to give a couple of quick shout outs to the official Alien Earth podcast. It's really good. I've really been enjoying it. They're bringing in actors. They're talking to Hawley. They talked to the costume director for episode 3. That brought in a whole new level of stuff. So I highly encourage folks to check that out. And they're keeping the episodes to like 30, 40 minutes. And so it's very consumable. And then I also just want to give a shout out to the moderators over at the subreddit for Alien, which is called LV426, which is, of course, the original planet. And the moderators over there are doing just a great job. There's a good conversation. Reddit can be sometimes, and it's pretty clean over there. And I like, I'm picking up a lot of stuff that people are putting down there. So it's really fun. I wanted to also use my position as the host to call back to a couple of things really quick. I rewatched Alien and Aliens the other weekend, and I said that the laser in Alien was green. It was actually blue, and they used a blue laser in this episode. So I just had to correct myself. And then just a couple of weird things talking about the corporate history of Earth and what's going on. First, Lieutenant Gorman, he's wearing in Aliens, again, spoilers for all things Alien universe. When they go to see Ripley at her apartment, he's wearing his Colonial Marine uniform, and he has a United States Stars and Stripes flag on his shoulder. And he's introduced as a Colonial Marine. So somehow there's a national government there. And something else that came up that I thought was interesting, Ripley accuses Burke of being the one who orders the colonists to go check the site. And then he, says, oh, yeah, I made a bad call, all that stuff. So there's a whole, why didn't Weyland-Yutani, why was it Burke, who's a low-level, or mid-level corp executive, saying, oh, I got to smuggle this back in. And he's doing a bunch of stuff that his bosses don't necessarily know about. So there's some sort of story disconnect there with the Weyland-Yutani known history versus this. So just an interesting thing to flag. And then lastly,
can I chime in on that real quick?
Yeah, please.
This is because the whole idea of there being a lieutenant, like an actual real military as opposed to a corporate military,
right? Just
relating to, I think it was Luke kind of taking this banner in one of your previous conversations.
Yeah.
Of like, how would a corporation have the legitimacy to truly be in charge? And I do think that might be evidence all we need, that they are really just, maybe they're controlling the world through puppets, but they still have to use those puppets, right? Because I think there would have to be some kind of it just works too well to control everything behind the scenes for them to risk, what has to have changed in the world that people would actually willingly sign up for corporate overlords when, we could totally have corporate overlords still with a sort of facade of a quote legitimate government. Why would they bother, right? So I feel like even if the US exists, it may just exist as a shell of its former self, but that shell at least has legitimacy that allows for some government. So maybe New Siam is not actually controlled by Prodigy, but just is de facto controlled. I don't know. Yeah.
And it could be that there are still functions that quote unquote national governments have a utility value of. There's a certain shared resources and sort of the commons, resources that are in the commons, that it's more easy to have a vestigial government doing those kinds of things, and you're externalizing the costs to that rather than the corporation. Yeah, training Marines and having big fleets of ships, that might be a little bit outside of our expertise of making money.
Right.
Yeah, my headcanon has always been that this is the extreme end of privatization because they obviously own planets in the solar system as well. So once you do that, why don't you start just privatizing entire chunks of planet Earth as well? So I've always had the impression there is still some element of government, but the privatization, capitalism end of the spectrum has just reached an extreme kind of end of its life cycle.
Right.
And this is something that Luke could certainly speak with much more authority on, but there does seem to be, as we go extreme in one direction, there's a regression, because we associate in the modern world, at least for a stable government, we associate that with the monopoly on the legitimate use of force. Right. The only person that can kill you legally is the government, right? The only person that can wage war legally is the government. That actually is a relatively recent thing. Like, it used to be 300, 400 years ago, there was feudal societies, or that would have been maybe a little bit earlier, but warfare could happen at the lower level. Like, a duel might be a more legitimate thing to settle a grievance. Have we gone so far into capitalism that then the government has lost its monopoly over violence, right? Now that the corporations also they don't just have private security. They can go in with armed force and take what they want and kill who they want in a weird way that is progression for humanity, but also bringing us back at least a few hundred years from contemporary times. Which
is what I was kind of arguing in episode 1 coverage is this feudalism with the trappings of, rather than having barons and dukes and having a table of organization that is nobility, it's vice presidents and directors and things like that. And that you are using lawyers to negotiate your treaties between, rather than sending your, ambassador of such and such.
It's super telling that Weyland-Yutani doesn't. They are clearly the bigger company with more
and
resources,
the oldest, as we understand.
And the oldest. It's very telling that she doesn't send an army in to take take everything back. Yeah, maybe that's coming, but they're both very comfortable to lean on the lawyers. So I think that it is the pen is mightier than the sword might be where this is now ended up.
And then we're 60 years into the future for Aliens with Cameron's movie. So who knows what goes on in the 60 years. And I think, Mark, you put your finger on it. There are certain things that we're not seeing in Alien and Aliens and Aliens 3 that Noah Hawley is showing us here. And he's doing that knowingly. So Alicia has a pet theory that this is a game within a game, that Yutani is trying to take down Prodigy. And I think some other people have this too. It's just in Alicia in my head with this theory that maybe the Maginot is not what it seems to be. So anyway, we'll see.
Deliberately crash landed into Prodigy. It's very interesting. Yeah,
I got a roll of tinfoil here behind me on my desk. If you guys need some, you can wrap.
I love that theory.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll actually start talking about the episode itself. Hey everyone, David here. Wanted to tell you about a company that makes some really beautiful Middle-earth inspired products. Actually, I wish I had discovered OSHA slings when my daughter was little and I was using a lot of different baby slings and carriers. They sent me one of their Ancients of Gondor Ithilden baby carriers. Honestly, the design of this carrier is cool as hell. The quality is impeccable. It's a really smart design and super easy to use. I wish I had this when I needed it. I would have loved to show off my dad nerd cred at the time. But they also sent me a really nice blanket, the Misty Mountains Throw. And now that same daughter, she monopolizes it whenever she's on the couch. It's beautiful, just the right weight. It's brushed cotton, so it's breathable and keeps us really cozy. We've been having a lot of cold weather lately, so we're always fighting over who gets to use it. A little about OSHA. They're a family-owned Scottish company. They've been handcrafting products since about 2010. Everything's ethically sourced and made in their solar-powered workshop. Check out their website. They've got a bunch of information about their sustainability practices. That's something that's really important to me. And they have this huge line of official Lord of the Rings products. They're making baby carriers, throws, scarves, mugs, tea towels, and the designs are stunning. Like, go check out the website right now. There's a link in the show notes. New customers get 10% off with the code Lorehounds. Go to OSCHAslings.com. And we're back. All right, episode 3, Metamorphosis, written by Noah Hawley, directed by Dana Gonzalez. And it's got about a 54-minute runtime, which is a little shorter than the ones and twosies. And I'm curious for both of you with this, it's not a cold open. I'm calling them warm opens, where we see the scenes from the previous episode unfolding slowly under the typographic fade in that is a alien signature. Ian, have you seen this anywhere else? I cannot think of another show that's done it quite like this.
No, I haven't. And I love the heck out of this. We, in my real job, which still feels like a fake
Shout out to CinemaSins if you're...
Yeah, CinemaSins and TV Sins. On the TV Sins sides, we always sin the previously ons for a couple of reasons. A, they tend to give away the bloody thing that you're going to enjoy this episode. Like, it's not just this is important. It's keep this in mind because this is like really heavily going to come back. Like, especially when they do
it's not even a amuse-bouche. It's like, you're going to have a steak later, so here's a little bit of a bite of steak.
It's literally just giving you a bite of the steak.
Yeah.
This is so organic and paired with... It's not really an opening theme. It's just like a chord and just a wham. That paired with just these crucial images that are mostly dialogueless. They're just the images that you need and just really, really tight, really, really just stripped down to a matter of seconds. And it works. It's the recap that I need because we aren't binging these all at once. We are doing this weekly. So those recaps are really helpful. And it eases you back into the episode instead of a jarring, bam, cliffhanger, resolution of cliffhanger. So it's Chef's Kiss, the best previously on conceit that I've ever seen.
And visually, it speaks in the language of Alien from the 79 Ridley Scott movie with the typographic fade in, but also the crossfade, the very soft crossfade stuff. And in this one, the background scene, the dominant scene of it was a body of a drone or, one of the xenomorph bodies as we were sort of panning sort of over its body. Mark, what do you make of the warm opens?
I like it. I do think if you truly needed the recap, I don't know if you're getting the information you need, but I'm enjoying it. I like that it's parallel a little bit. If you think of how the opening of the first episode was, and there were these flashbacks of what was flashbacks isn't even the right word. There were flashes of what was about to happen with the aliens. They feel like that kind of, except happening while the main title not the main title, but the title cards are appearing. So it's hard for me to say if this was a situation where you watched one episode and then had to wait 4 weeks before you could watch the next one because you were traveling or something, if you'd get enough information. But
good point.
I love that it's not spoiling, just like Ian said. I think that's wonderful. And I think I have seen, there are sometimes you'll see a previously on where they take a lot of they use it as like a hype almost. There's a lot of fast cuts and they really make you want to, and you don't learn anything out of it. Like there's something about the economy of what they're doing where you are reminded of certain key vibes at the very least. So while I don't think it helps you remember the character relationships and all that, like sometimes you'd get, it really, from a mood perspective, I don't know that I've ever seen it better. And I'm not skipping it. And as much as I like main title music and stuff like that, I do sometimes. I've got limited time. I'll skip it, and it's just short enough that it doesn't ever overstay its welcome. I hope this kind of thing spreads in a way, though, that people making other shows can do something like it in their own language.
Right.
I think this is fits really well with my conception of the vibe of Alien.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that this vibe would work in Star Trek or whatever, but there's a Star Trek version of this that maybe would be pretty cool, right?
Star Trek is for me, one of the biggest culprits of this, Strange New Worlds right now. Sometimes it will like clip back to something that happened 2 seasons ago. And I'm like, oh, great. I guess that's important. Like, thanks for preloading me. I don't need a trailer for the previous episode. I just want to be eased back into the mood of where you left me last time. And yeah, I think that's what these do.
I think this goes into the modern state of television making as well, both movies and television, because we're doing direct to streaming movies, that sometimes you hear from creatives notes that they get back from studio executives, which is over-explain this because people are not watching the screen, they're looking at their phone. So we need to auditorily deliver information. Where Holly and FX, Holly has a reputation, and FX does as well, of actually allowing their creatives to be creative and not pander to the market's worst tendencies. And this is, these are, like you said, these are largely dialogue-less. There's no dialogue in these, so you have to watch it.
And I'm loving it, and they make it beautiful. You are rewarded by that because I think the way it's edited together.
Oh, I like that idea.
You get the goosebumps of the title reveal as well. I think it's very deliberately rewarding you for paying attention, because the end goal is a reward as well. You're more, I personally feel more eased into the action rather than, and now the conclusion. Bam!
I just was taken back to Star Trek Next Generation.
Absolutely.
And now the conclusion. Mariel Barrett saying that.
Which is the exception that I actually love. So ignore me.
Well, it's nostalgia. All right, let's get into our first scene. Why Peter Pan? As Wendy runs really fast to go save her brother. Sorry, sometimes a little snarky in my scene descriptions. To go save her brother, Kirsch finishes his review of the Maginot data files. Nibs starts tripping, and Curly, a.k.a. Pickles, tries to console her. Kirsch takes a call from Boy K, who updates their mission profile from a rescue to containment and retrieval. Boy K admonishes Kirsch for not being better than a man when he learns that Wendy is off on her own. Mark, what did you make of this scene?
Does this include the conversation between Curly and Nibs?
Yes.
I was struck there by the line that Wendy was the first. Wendy got to be Wendy because she was created first. Right. But I was also thinking of Peter Pan in that, Wendy was not the first. The Lost Boys were there way before Wendy and her family. And so who's Peter? If Peter is the first Lost Boy, why is one of them not Peter? Right? I think that was an interesting, I'm struggling a little bit with the analogy, the metaphor. Is Peter one day what Boy K wants to be? But that line just, I knew what she meant. She was thinking of it from the perspective of, well, Marcy became Wendy before any of us, so she got to be Wendy. But there's something that breaks the analogy a little bit for that, because Wendy is a latecomer in that story, right? They go to Neverland, and the Lost Boys have been there for who knows how long, right? So
I think I can help a little bit on that point, because I think he's drawing mostly from the book and not any of the other iterations. And Peter Pan would have iterations of Lost Boys. Many waves of Lost Boys would come and go. And I think Wendy is, in this batch of Lost Boys, the primary. So it's less about her being first, more about her being the main character, I think. So she gets to be Wendy because she was first, and Wendy is most important in this version of Peter Pan's story. I think. That was my interpretation anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's pulling the book directly as opposed to any visual any work that's done on screen. So, and from what I get, I don't know that I've ever actually read the book, but the interview that I heard with Noah Hawley on the Official Pod, it sounds like the book is really dark.
Oh, it's messed up. It's one of my tinfoil hat theories. Many, many years since I've read it, so I had to dig into finding this. But there's some stuff that happens in the book that I'm like, oh, I think he's setting up some direct scenes from. This might be a Peter Pan adaptation more than it is an Alien entry.
It could very well be, and I would not put it past him to use that as the underlying template that he's building that Alien story on. Mark, I had to think of being a parent as well when Kirsch admonishes, is it Toodles? It must be Toodles. He says, look with your eyes.
He's so dumb.
Oh my God. So, okay, I actually, that makes me think of, I'm going to say it now because I don't think we'll talk about it later, but later there's the point at which Boy K says quarantine only synths and hybrids allowed in this area. And so the Toodles and Curly, I think it is, become kind of the lab assistants.
Yes. Yeah.
And
because Toodles says in episode 1 or 2 that I want to be a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, oh, I hadn't remembered that.
Yeah.
So there's also a scene where, is it Curly that learns French or something like that?
Yes. When she's
like
talking
a Matrix style download.
Yep. When she's talking to Kirsch this episode. Yeah, that's right.
So then that raises the question.
Sorry, Boy K. My bad.
Okay. That it raises the question. So like presumably Toodles and Curly they download a whole bunch of here's how to be a lab assistant thing because suddenly Kirsch is without his normal human or synth or cyborg assistants, right? But that maybe that's not enough to stop Toodles from trying to touch the screen. And like, I don't know at which point that happens, but when they're children, child minds in synth bodies, what does it mean to be a child who then has many years of lab assistantship data downloaded into you? You don't have the hormones of an adult and puberty and all that, but you almost by definition have that experience, even though those experiences are not experiences you ever had in the sort of, whoa, I know Kung Fu way from the Matrix. And maybe this is a question for Nicole, honestly. I don't know if she's watching this show.
Mark, there are dozens of times where I was like, oh shit, I need to talk to Nicole about this. And I don't know if she's watching the show.
How much of becoming an adult is experience and information and knowledge, and how much of it is just hormones? Because they're getting one without the other. And some of them are clearly still behaving more like kids than others, but how many hundreds of years of expertise could you download and still act like the Gen Alpha jackasses that two of those guys are, right? Like, which is funny that the slang is so similar 200 years from now, but 100 years from now. So I don't know, what do we do with Toodles still acting all immature, even though presumably he may now be an expert in several fields?
Right.
Well, it's that knowledge versus wisdom thing, isn't it? I would be quite interested to hear Curly speak French. Like, if a native French speaker had a conversation with her, would they just laugh and say, well, yeah, you know the words, but you're not getting the syntax and the feeling of French.
Sound like a textbook.
You sound like a textbook. So, but if they're also downloading some of the great French novels and literary works alongside that, like I want to know more about what they're downloading as well and how controlled and prescriptive that is, because that will inform the grown-ups that they grow into.
Speaking of downloading, Ian, I'm curious, how far into this episode did you go? Did you stop and read the screen data that Kirsch was reading on the computer monitor?
I actually did not know.
Okay.
Hit me.
So he's reading, I did, and it absorbed a good chunk of my day yesterday.
In that case, I'm glad I didn't.
He was reading the description of the plant creature that was hanging in the hallway that Toodles is standing in front of. So it read, a carnivorous plant not dissimilar to the Terran genus Drosera. Science officer has given tentative taxonomic classification of D. plumbicare, and I don't know if I'm spelling that right because there's a couple of letters that I couldn't quite make out. Due to the use of mucilage, which is the like snot, to lure unsuspecting prey a stamen to sense prey, and a pattern of leaves, quote unquote, which form a mouth. Though generally confined to carnivory, D. plumicaire has been seen eating nearby flora in dire situations. Animals given to D. plumicaire have expired in one of three ways: asphyxiation, dissolution, or exhaustion. Enzymatic breakdown begins upon decease. Stamen also acts as a gauge of atmospheric pressure and temperature. When conditions become inhospitable or a threat to survival, D. plumicaire closes completely. When attempting to open a closed plumicaire, many kilograms of pressure were applied to no avail. Once back on Earth, further testing is needed to confirm the strength of, and then it just repeats again.
Once back on Earth. So are these lab notes from the Maginot then?
Yes, these are. This is
all right. All right.
It's a jacked up Venus flytrap,
basically, and the taxonomic genus Drosera are the other kind. Oh shit! I don't have to have that in my. They're they're not the Venus flytraps. They're the other ones that are more passive,
right?
In a way. I had a note earlier on this. I didn't save. Sundews.
I just looked it up.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so interesting.
Pretty.
I really want to know if this all came from the same planet or multiple planets. Because if it's the same planet, my goodness, does this planet want to kill everything? Every bug on this planet.
I think
it's
a really good question. Was it just LV-426, or did they go to several worlds?
So that's where you all have to help me out, because I haven't seen all the prequels, and it's been a long time since I've seen Prometheus. The engineers create humans.
So I'm going to stop you right there. Noah Hawley has specifically said he's not using Covenant and Prometheus in his storyverse.
So that means they didn't happen, or he doesn't care about them in kind of a Andor.
He doesn't care. I think he doesn't.
Does that mean they're not true, though?
I don't think he's going to actively disprove them or counter-canon them. I think he's just going to craft a story that doesn't rely on that information, is my instinct.
Okay. Yeah, so the black goo is not part of this story is not going to be included in this story as far as we know.
But it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
So the black goo, I don't quite remember that, except that turns somebody into that created the xenomorph.
It was a bioweapon to So there's questions of I am not a Prometheus and Covenant stan, so I'm going to be careful to not butcher this. But basically, this black goo was a bioweapon that the engineers use, and then there's questions of whether the aliens were bioengineered weapons as well or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's the closest I'm going to get to it, because I am not a fan of those movies.
So if we just take it as simple as that, my question ultimately, aside from recap me everything I've missed, which I'll catch up. If there's a second season, I will catch up on everything before then. So are we to understand that these are also created and engineered lowercase or capital creatures? Or do we think maybe they're native, or we just don't know? Because
we don't know.
Or both. Or any combination of the above. Yeah, we don't know.
All right.
I'm feeling like they're natural evolution life forms shaped by their environment over millennia.
Unless,
in a way that we don't think xenomorphs are, according to
we don't know. Well, right. And I am on the side of I don't want to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, unless all life in this galaxy was engineered.
By the engineers.
By the engineers. Right. But then you're arguing about what's natural and what.
Exactly.
Yeah. What is
Which
God?
is a question of the show. Which is a question of the show is what is a human? When is a machine not a machine?
Yeah.
What is a human being and when is a human being? So yeah, what is human nature? It's all this show.
Wow. Okay. Back on task then.
For now.
Right. So just a couple of final points for me on this. I love the foreshadowing of the tensions between the Lost Boys with Curly and Nibs. And obviously Nibs is getting weird. And then we have this whole thing of Boy K towards Kirsch, if you were a better man. And then I think that brilliantly from a script wise primes the pump for our conversation with Morrow later, being a cyborg and having the worst parts of him left over. So it was really interesting.
I also think that starts sending Kirsch on a path to shut Boy K up. It was like, you think I'm stupid? Okay, we'll see. And I will get to that later in the episode. But
Perfect.
I think that perfectly triggered a subroutine that Boy K did not want to trigger.
Do we know for synths, like my association with the alien universe and synths or androids is usually they're kind of like, not going to help you out, right? There's been some naughty behavior in the past. Do we know about the nature of their AI, so to speak? Are they Demerzel from Foundation, where like they're intelligent, but ultimately they're serving some grand directive? Or is Kirsch just an actual artificial intelligence that has the free will if he wanted to, that he could just murder Boy K if he felt like it?
This is a very
good question.
The laws, sort of.
This is a very interesting question because we've just created a new one of our literary frameworks or analytic frameworks, which is called the Zatoichi, named after one of our Discord users. The Zatoichi scale for AI competency. I can't remember what it is now, but basically we're going to start ranking the AIs from like Skynet all the way down to
Calculator.
Basic calculator. Exactly.
We've definitely seen synths counteract their programming and their commands and orders. Now, whether that's strictly sticking to some in-universe rules or following what's satisfying for a movie is up for debate.
Right.
But yeah, we don't know where he falls on that. I'd like to think he has some free will, but that's because I'm biased towards loving Timothy Oliphant.
And I called him a walking LLM in the last couple of episodes. It might have been Sub-Zero, or I forget. Somebody else on the Discord was like, no, because that's not accurate, because he has Kirsch has agency, and so not agency, has self-awareness.
Yeah.
And Bishop has self-awareness because in Aliens, he says, what does he say? I may be synthetic, but I'm not stupid. When he's saying about being afraid about going, when Hudson says, yeah, man, you go out to the tower and call down the dropship.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick before we move on from the scene, Ian, you wanted to mention the diopter shot. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, of course. This is just, I know Noah Hawley, someone on there is an absolute nerd, and I love it so much. These split diopter shots always stand out to me because they are so deliberately unsettling. So this is when somebody in the foreground is just as in focus as the person in the background. And they do this literally with two lenses, and an artifact of that is that you have this unsettling blurriness that's kind of around the person that's in the foreground. But what it does is just, it makes the composition of that shot just completely pop, and it is unsettling because it is counterintuitive to how we are used to things being filmed. Usually there's like a shift in focus, right? Now your eyes are drawn over here, but suddenly your eyes are like kind of drawn into two different places. And
what's the shot?
Sorry?
Which shot is it?
Oh, so this is when Boy K is asking about Wendy, and Nibs basically says, oh, Wendy's alone. She's out there alone. And Kirsch is in the background just acknowledging that fact. And it lets the moment sink in that Wendy is out there on her own, and the fear that puts into Nibs as she's dealing with the trauma that she's just been through and what could be out there. There's so many levels to it, because she has just been attacking Wendy and showing this jealousy of Wendy, and then immediately switching to this concern. She's out there on her own and she might die. And it's just such a great moment to use what's just a nerdy film technique.
And I would add that it's also the way we see. When I'm focused on something, and when I'm focusing on you, everything else around you is blurry.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so to have two things in focus that are at different distances is unnatural.
It's super dynamic. It's such an interesting way to shoot.
And then what I didn't pick up on the diopter aspect of it, I picked up on the horror framing of it. That there's the monsters behind Kirsch, and then there's this big separation with Nibs looking freaked the fuck out.
Yes.
Right in the foreground. And it just really made me creeped out. And I think what was the subtle visual cue was that that they're both in focus, and I didn't pick up on that. So really good visual storytelling.
Oh, it's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. The next scene, come at me, bro. We begin our big action set piece down in the sub-levels of the building with Wendy running some more until she finds Hermit, glued to the back of a shipping container, conveniently a meat locker. Unafraid, Wendy advances on the Xeno, who retreats to the top of the container. Wendy stabs the roof, introducing the acid mechanic. The container is flipped, Joe gets stabbed, and then gets a face full of KY jelly. Wendy hooks the Xeno's pharyngeal jaw and tries to trap it. The Xeno bites off its own jaw and pulls Wendy into the chamber, where she ultimately decapitates it. Ian, how do you feel about this scene? There's been some complaints. People were like, could Joe really survive a stab wound like that? We didn't actually get to see Wendy fight the creature. What did you make of the scene overall?
I would have been completely fine if we just skipped to opening that door and having the xenomorph headless and Wendy standing over it and collapsing. Not because I'm disappointed by the lack of action or anything like that, but this is the weakest bit of the episode for me because it's immediately, thanks to Noah Hawley, not what I'm coming to these episodes for. So it almost feels like let's tick the action cliche boxes in a lot of ways. So the false tension of, yes, he's been kidnapped instead of killed. The very, very slow mouth coming out when sometimes it's just an immediate puncture wound to the face, but because Hermit is important, it's very, very slow and deliberate, giving Wendy enough time to save the day. The non-fatal puncture wound of the tail as well, because Hermit has to survive. All of that, it felt like, let's get through this action scene because we need a bit of action so that I can get back to the interesting bit, which is the Lost Boys and telling the story about what it is to be human and synth and stuff like that. So right. While I will never not love looking at a xenomorph, and I love that it isn't hidden in darkness. The times that the xenomorph is hidden is very deliberate and very effectual, and I love looking at it. The action scenes themselves are doing very little for me. So I kind of actually, I think I'm giving it a backhanded compliment because I'm glad that it's done quick. And it's just like, let's get all of these cliches done in about 60 seconds and then we can get back to the proper story. So it doesn't do a lot for me so far, but I'm glad it's over quick.
It's a lot of setup. I do like that they did the setup using the visual language of Alien. So it really felt like the Nostromo or Hadley's Hope. You know, the silhouetting, the head poking through the strip curtain, the strobe lights, the drippy industrial space. Mark,
all the member berries, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Mark, how did you feel about the scene overall?
I'm mostly fine with it. I prefer the rest of it to the action for sure in this particular series specifically. I thought it was interesting that they showed a lot of xenomorph, a lot of running around and the tail going through his back and all that, but then we don't see Wendy fight it.
Yeah.
Whereas that's kind of the thing that everybody's wondering, right? Wait, is she invincible? Could she just rip this thing apart with her hands? And we don't see that. And maybe that's cool, but I'm surprised they gave us so much of the xenomorph before that. I'm fine with that though. I don't have it was pretty short. I do have a question about how we're supposed to interpret the xenomorph's abilities and intelligence, though. Do you think, oh, wow, they heard it up there and she stabbed it and it bled acid and, oh, they got it and, oh my gosh, learned it bled acid? Or do you think the xenomorph deliberately allowed itself to be stabbed so that it could acid through and surprise them and hurt them? It almost felt like the xenomorph was going up there and waiting to be hurt to attack it with the acid. But if that makes, why wouldn't it just attack them? There's something about the way that's shot that made me wonder if it was a deliberate kind of more higher level intelligent behavior than I expect from Xeno.
We do know that they're extremely intelligent hunters, so that wouldn't surprise me. Like, it laying a trap is well within its abilities and what we know of it as a strategist.
The very fact of using Joe at the end of the meat locker is a trap.
Sure, yes. Yeah, and that it's allowing itself to be injured to hurt you with its blood is the thing in particular that surprised me. That a trap is one thing. That's
right.
And I don't know if that's what's intended, but that's how. There's something about the way that it came together that made me wonder that.
I would add to build on what you were saying a little bit, Ian, too. There are some mechanical things that they do here. Where did Wendy go after the container was flipped? She's just gone until she picks up the hook, which is the hook that Joe had picked up in the meat locker, to use it as the hook to grab it. The blood, there's a mechanical element. They're introducing the acid mechanic to remind us of it because we haven't really seen it yet in the series. And so I can't tell what is organic story and what is writer scaffolding of the writer to get us through the scene.
What I picked up on in that scene with the one you're mentioning with the alien crawling across the top and Wendy just absolutely nailing it with one hit. What I got from that was more telling us about her abilities, that she has a sense, whether it's this enhanced hearing where she can hear the alien coming, she has a connection to it. The fact that she hit it in one shot immediately, and I'm probably reading too much into it, but the alien is almost shrieking in surprise. I was like, you got me? What do you mean you got me? You weren't supposed to get me. I'm hidden. So I feel like it was the early foreshadowing of Wendy having some advantage on the xenomorph and being connected to it. But that's a lot of reading in, knowing what happens at the end of the episode.
And I'll add in that there's an element of that where Wendy advances on the drone, that's poking its head in the end, like, hey, I'm here to eat you, little humans. Be scared now. And Wendy's like, hey, I've got a pokey thing. I'm going to walk towards you. And the aliens, whoa, why is this?
Wait a minute.
This isn't right. And so there's...
What are you doing? I don't know.
So there's a definite setup of the power inversion. And we're seeing a lot of that. We'll see that later when the kids are playing around the eggs. Where Holly is really messing with our sense of what we should be afraid of. And these synths are not afraid of the same things as a human is afraid of. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really interesting part of it.
He's definitely using the fan knowledge to build the tension. Yeah.
It's about the Joe and being stabbed by the tail. I did freeze frame that. And he got stabbed more in the upper right quadrant, which is where your liver, gallbladder, pancreas, and kidney are, or your right kidney. So not vital organs, and maybe obviously the lung, because they take the lung out later here. So I did have a slight problem with the fact that he was able to hotwire the door and do all these things. But whatever. It's the sake of the story, I'm willing to let
it's the action cliche stuff. Yeah. Although I did like that he wired it. It wasn't just kinetic adjustment. It wasn't punch the thing until it works. It was like, screw it, I'm smart. I'm going to rewire this door and then get it to open. So there was the Star Trek nerd in me that liked the physical technobabble that happened.
There's an interesting thing that was brought up in the official pod, which is, what is the xenomorph representative of? Is it a specter of unavoidable death, or is it a survival animal? Is it a creature that's just trying to survive? Which I think brings up the question of, when is a machine not a machine? When is a xenomorph just purely a survival machine, as opposed to being able to have the in the later movies, they kill two of them, attack a third one to release the acid blood so that those two can escape. I forget which movie that was. But in this one, it bites off its own jaw. Mm-hmm. So, Mark, I'm curious if you were, like you said, you're not as steeped into the alien world, but what does the xenomorph represent to you as a human being imagining this unholy death machine?
Well,
which is a biased statement on my part.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I think there's a reason that they have the Alien and Predator crossovers. Right?
Yes.
And absolutely. I haven't seen either of those films, but I played the arcade game in the 90s or whatever. And just the idea of they both are these deadly threats to humanity, but they kind of represent a different facet of that kind of threat, and that there is something primordial and animalistic and, I don't know, like not more menacing, but more unrelatable of the xenomorph versus the predator. Which, am I wrong that the predator is kind of the more like you root for the predator in the AVP stuff? Or am I wrong about that?
Oh man, it's in theory. Matt, so wow,
No,
that's my answer. That's my answer.
I think of them as more civilized on some level, right? Like
I will put it down even to the biological. The Yuan-Ti, the predators, are bipedal with binocular vision, so we identify with them.
Yeah.
Whereas
they are capturing the aliens and using them in a game, which is why the empathy thing stumbled my brain. In theory, yes, we relate to the bipedal creatures, but the aliens are the ones that are being abused and forced into a war game situation.
But humans would do that, so they're like more like more like
Hence
us,
my
right?
stuttering. Yeah, exactly.
So there we go. So I think if we kind of take that as inspiration, then what was the duality? Are they like
are they
avatar
merely
of debt? Say it again.
Are they merely a survival organ? An organism that has maybe a higher order intelligence, but is driven by their survival, as opposed to being a metaphor for our psychology of the unavoidableness of our mortality of death.
Yeah, I guess I don't see why those two things are in opposition. I mean, I know that this relates to the Giger kind of art and all that, like the rape metaphors of the early Alien films, right? And it represents something, but maybe that something is the sort of relates to the primordial, like survival animalistic aspects. That doesn't mean that it's not symbolic also of death manifest, right? I think having not been exposed to enough of the universe, it's hard for me to do more than just cop out and say both of those things. It's interesting to me that they chose those two things as opposed forces. Nicole always hassles me in our podcast, like, did they intend that? Like, did the songwriters intend what you just said? And does it matter, right? If it's observed, it's real, right? Mm-hmm. So if the alien does represent sometimes the symbolism of rape, violence, and things like that, like in Alien,
the most horrific things that we can imagine that a human being could do.
That's right. Or does it sometimes just represent the carnivorous base element of animal life?
Yeah.
Right. Death and murder at different times. Like if you perceive it as symbolic of one thing, why does it have to not be the other at other times? I don't know.
Fair.
Cop out.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a cop out. I think it points to the nuance and why this is so interesting, and why the facet, it's a crystal and a facet. And as we examine one aspect, we see the other aspects reflected. And so I think
a different series can choose to embrace one of those aspects, because this series is talking about transhumanism in a way that, maybe Alien versus Predator films aren't, right? That's more about
I think that's a good assessment.
Animal rights abuses or whatever. I don't know.
That's a fair assessment.
All right, let's take a quick break before we move on to the next scene. All right, we're back. If you thought we got heavy in the last couple of scenes, this is the big one. Ghost in the Machine. Slightly and Smee are reunited and then confronted by Morrow, who asks a central question of the series. When is a machine not a machine? After downloading all the ship's data and wiping the mainframe, in a blink and you'll miss it moment, Morrow puts a comm badge on Slightly's neck and then is confronted by Kirsch. Clearly being outmatched and not wanting to be captured, Morrow jumps. So just to clarify, to make sure everybody's on the same page, as far as I'm interpreting it, He uploaded the ship's data into his brain, right? The light beams were going into his head, not out of his head. He wipes the computer, and then the little disc that he pulls from his thumb is not a download. It's not the plans of the Death Star, to put into an R2 unit.
No.
It is a communications device that when he has slightly by the neck, there is a blink and you'll miss it scene of him putting that dot on his neck, and then that dot sort of disappear, sort of blends in with the skin,
which explains the telepathy later on.
100%.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
I did not see that.
And possibly more.
Right.
Yeah, and it took some careful, it took some Discord conversation and some careful review of the scenes to.
Oh yeah, literally, if you blink, it's gone. It's interesting how not heavy-handed that is, considering how important it is.
100%, which is a great reveal, because when he's talking to him later, I'm like, wait, what? What the fuck?
What? Yeah.
Yeah. How is this going? But I heart slightly in Smee. They're so funny.
Oh my gosh.
You said fuck. You said shit.
It's so good. They are the perfect encapsulation of the children probably the most immature children inside the adult bodies, and how quickly they get into that wrestling match and then get out of it and they're just friends again. That scatterbrain way that an 8, 9, 10-year-old will view the world and be done with things. I just died laughing when Slightly is describing like what happened to Wendy, and Smee is like in it and is like, that's so intense. Hey, wonder what these eggs do. Just onto the next thing. And there is just so much evidence that the fact that we're dealing with kids in an adult's body is so important. It's not just a conceit. It is such an important part of this show, and they've given it the weight it deserves in the research. And like I said, the child psychologist that is behind the scenes, the training they went through to be children has paid off so much. It's just chef's kiss.
Are you getting it enough from Wendy?
I
know she might be a year older, and she's been, or a couple years older than some of them, and I know she's been a hybrid for longer, but I feel like I'm watching a young adult when I watch Wendy, and she's acting well, but like I see the terror of Nibs, and it feels more like there's something about, even Curly, like, she's got a little ambition, like a preteen or like a middle schooler. Something about Wendy, I don't know. I don't feel it as much. And I don't want her to be a goofball, but what do you...
It is interesting. I feel it the least of all of them. And I feel like it's not distracting me, because I'm putting it down to like different personalities of kids. Like some kids can be extremely mature, and she has a singular purpose as well. She is obsessed with getting back to Hermit and getting back to her brother and having some connection to him.
And I would add that she's also been designated by Dame Sylvia and Arthur as the older sister. Right? So she's taken on that persona. Oh, I need to be older.
And I wonder if they've programmed that into her through the time gap that we've missed of her and the rest of the Lost Boys arriving. Because they talked about giving her hormones and the adolescent stuff and the extra stuff she went through.
As a parent, Mark, I don't know your family composition, but I can only imagine. My daughter's a little bit older; she's coming up to 10. But I can just see this is boy behavior. These two, Smiley and Smee and Slightly.
Oh yeah, my oldest just turned 11, and he's going into 6th grade, and his friends are doofuses. It's kind of, it's one of those things where you have to just accept, like, oh, they're talking like 11-year-olds now, and that's impossible in 2120, but roll with it. It's fine. But like there also is, my son's actually kind of serious, right? And so he can act like a doofus too, but they're not all like that. Like to have the two boys be like that, but the rest of them, I like that there is a diversity. Maybe the girls on average are skewing more mature. That feels right. And, though maybe I think maybe Wendy's a little too far there.
Again, we need
Nicole.
I
like that it does. Yeah, we need she can tell us how realistic as it, but then you take away the hormones, you take away and you download all this experience. And what do I know about what Wendy should be acting like, right? She's not an 11-year-old girl anymore. She is something different that isn't even human, let alone having all the chemistry and sort of the, Nicole says, what, meat socks or something? Like we're all meat puppets. Like, she's not that anymore, right? She's something else.
Yeah.
So I don't, it doesn't not work for me, but I almost feel like in the same way that they have her scratching her neck, like they're, could they have given us some kind of a tick, some kind of a thing she does that would just be a little sparkle of, oh my gosh, she's a kid.
Right.
I don't ever have that moment.
Got it.
I guess is the thing. And maybe we'll get it. Maybe we'll get it.
With Curly, she says no more pooping. So we were instantly taken to she's a kid when she's talking to Boy K.
I think I had it a little bit in the first episode when she jumps off the mountain. I was like, want a race? And then gone.
Yeah.
I think there are some flashes there, but also I know the kids all come from some traumatic background, but Wendy's we had a lot of time with. I assume it was some kind of cancer or some kind of disease. I think it's safe to say she's had a very serious childhood. So there may be an element of prematuring that she had to do that also made her a good fit for being thrown into an adult body.
Yeah.
And I forget, is it Nibs or somebody does not come with a disease or a disability prior? I think Curly
I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
One of them said I wasn't dying or something. Or I was
interesting.
And that, I wish I remembered.
Again, a blink in a moment.
That tells us a lot probably about the social, economic kind of context of
maybe
these
they were
kids.
given up for a different reason.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I want to build off of something, Mark, that you said too, which is, kids and acting doofuses, and are they really human? And one of the ways that Morrow knows that they are synths is that the eggs don't react to them as they're playing around with them. And I mentioned this before, where Hawley is taking us on some different angles of the alien world building where we're like, get away from the egg. And every time a human goes near one and it starts to open a little bit, we're like, ah. And Slightly and Smee are goofballing around, being doofuses by the eggs. And my instinct is like, kids, get away from the egg. Oh, they're synths. It's not reacting. And so I love, and the same with Wendy advancing on the xenomorph. Wait, you're not supposed to walk towards the xenomorph. You're supposed to run as fast as you can the opposite direction. So I love how he's playing with our sensibilities of the world with these different kinds of characters. It's a really unique take.
Yeah.
I've got another audio clip for us.
Are you a robot? Wouldn't that be nice to be all machine instead of what I am? The worst parts of the map.
Data transfer at 78%.
So, what would you do in this scenario? Could you harm others? Or allow them to be harmed? Could you follow those orders?
No, not like, are they bad people?
Does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, if it was to protect someone like our friends or
Like our parents?
Yeah, like our parents.
Data transfer at 93%.
You don't know. Is that possible?
No, what?
Well, your bodies are clearly synthetic, but you think you have parents.
Oh, no, it's just because
Shh, don't tell him. Tell me what?
There's so much in this scene. There's Asimov robotic laws. There is this reference to a book called Ghost in the Machine by Arthur Kessler. There's just so much I want to talk about. Plus, kids just being kids. Like, shh, don't tell them. But I'm curious, Ian, what did you make of this aspect? We'll get to the part where Kirsch comes up in a minute. But I want to talk about Morrow and what Morrow is going through and what this is saying about the human condition. When is a machine not a machine? What is the Morrow as a threat, as dangerous as the xenomorph in some ways? I could There's just a kitchen sink of stuff in here, so pick up something. And
oh my god, there really is. I want to know so much about the extent of his cyborginess, because if there is something that's also in his brain that's helping process, and I think there has to be some element in his brain now that we've seen the download of information happen, I feel like he is. We know he now has he has a singular mission. Like, he is committed. There is nothing else in his life now. The samples are his mission. And is he doing some million computations a second where he's now seeing the kids as a resource while he's working out his escape plan and how he can download information? He's also faced with 2 inept guards. And as he uncovers the layers of, wait, you're not just inept guards, you belong to Prodigy, something bigger. You're clearly synths, but now you have child minds. Why would you choose to have a child mind if you're a synth? What kind of maniac would do that? And I think he's processing so many things at once, and then working out how he can use them as tools to get to his end goal. Because putting the communications thing on him requires a deep level of thought, because he doesn't know that Kirsch is just coming around the corner. So he has that. He's enacting that plan very quickly. The thing that I'm struggling with is he doesn't strike me as a curious man. So the when is a machine, not a machine thing, I don't feel like that's him wrestling with the ultimate question. And man, what does that make me? Because he himself seems like a very alienated character and out of his time. He's now 60 years removed from anything that he wanted. This is not how I think he expected the mission to end. So I don't think it's out of curiosity. I think it's out of pure manipulation to get to his end goal.
And I think you said a curious word. He's alienated. Mm-hmm. Why do we call it aliens, right? Because they're others. They're different from us in some way. And Babu Cisse's on the official pod this week, and there's this whole question of what is he driven by? Mm-hmm. Like you said, he doesn't have anything left in this world. And this is where I parallel in with the H.G. Wells story, The Island of Dr. Moreau, because later he says these specimens are my life's work. Mm-hmm. And that 1896 book, talks about Moreau, who is trying to hybridize life and create these beast men who follow these strict laws to not go on all fours, to not suck up drink, but to drink like a human, to not eat raw fish or flesh, not to claw at the bark of trees, don't do territorial marking behavior, don't chase other men, like control your aggressions. And we see Moreau controlling his fear, which is a primal emotional response for human beings that has kept us alive. And, he's in the computer control room on the Maginot, acting very calmly and rationally to preserve his life. The alien comes over his shoulder in the tower block apartment, and he centers himself. And for whatever reason, mystery, Cliff, we don't know yet why the alien chooses not to kill him. And so, what is driving Moreau? This anti-hero, his loyalty to Yutani, his sense of survival. And then he says, I'm left with the worst parts. What are worst parts?
Yeah, is he talking about, the emotions failure, or physical limitations? Yeah, no,
I think it's, and what Mark was saying before, imposter syndrome, self-loathing. I've lost. What is my value of purpose? And I don't feel valuable. I feel less than.
He doesn't seem, when he makes reference to being a parent, that doesn't seem to, there's almost a bitterness in that, right? I wonder if he resents that. That's caused him to, it's not like 65 years or whatever. His kid's probably still out there. He could have grandkids. He could have great grandkids, right? But he almost, it's like a trapping of a former life almost, that he's using it to say, look what I've lost. But I don't get the sense that he feels that loss with a sense, in a way that connects him to his humanity. It's almost like, in a sense, that makes him wish he didn't have that humanity.
Yeah.
And So I have so many thoughts. Can I drop?
Yeah,
dive
in.
Just based on what you were saying, David, the island of Dr. Moreau and all that, I'm struck by the idea of like the difference between literal truth and sort of metaphorical truth in fiction. So like maybe even a better example, you and Alicia and Luke were talking about the Maginot.
Yeah.
Right. As, oh, well, the Maginot line, like, okay, it's symbolic of this failed mission. People in that universe know what the Maginot line is and named a ship after it. So
Yes.
like it has symbolic truth for us as the consumers of the story.
Yeah.
But if you think what's the symbolism of the person who christened that ship Maginot? Well, this is the ship that's going to get destroyed in the same way that like, okay, is he halfway between beast and man or synth and man, which is the island of Dr. Moreau? But also he was given that name. That's his actual name in the story. So like, at what point do we take things, because this isn't a name like you're given the name Wendy upon your ascendance as a lost boy. Well, the symbolism is brought to be one and the same as the literal truth. Is the literal truth of his name just his name, or are we supposed to interpret that Hawley has taken the literal truth, thrown it out the window, and replaced it with metaphorical truth that informs what he means in the story? And I just don't think we have enough information. Same with the Maginot, but if the Maginot is gone from our story, I think we can take it to its symbolic meaning to be more important, right?
Mm-hmm. And this is where I take
just an opening salvo, right?
And this is where I take it back to the molecular gastronomy cuisine. That Hawley is knowingly playing with these elements, and he knows that he's putting. I've atomically deconstructed this thing, and then now I've dressed it up like food, or I've done the inverse, and he's feeding it to us, and we're like, oh, wait, is this? How am I supposed to relate to this? I don't know. And I think that's one of the beauties of the show.
So other things, totally. Other things I was thinking about this is the economy of the storytelling. Especially going back to that conversation of how much Alien have you watched? His line, we've seen some synths in the first few episodes here, but his line, you don't know, right, tells us so much about the uniformity of synths that to this, I don't remember who you said in the Discord that pointed it out, that like, no, he's not
Zatoichi.
Just a language model. He has self-awareness. The synths in this world, at least as far as Morrow knows, and granted he's been gone 60 years or whatever, all uniformly know they are synths, know they do not have a mom and dad, right? And so it's so quick to tell us that the way things are, the synths are all kind of a piece in terms of their nature, right? That we don't have Macs and PCs and Linux computers. They're all kind of follow the same rules, almost Asimovian rules, right? So I thought that was really interesting, and I love what you said, Ian, about him seeming to have a lack of curiosity, because it does make me think, when is a machine not a machine is just his way of telegraphing, I know there's something weird with you. It's not a philosophical existential musing. I feel like I'm leaning more towards that. It's almost a threat, sort of a tease.
He's toying with them.
He's messing with them. Question for you all, and then this is my last thought. What are the levels of cyborg engagement in the rest of the Alien universe? I don't remember a cybernetic person.
0.
Okay, it's all synths until now.
Bishop,
interesting,
and Ash, and
David.
Yeah.
They're full-on synths. Or don't they call them androids in some of those? Am I crazy? Or is
I'm sure I've heard android.
Bishop says I prefer to be called an artificial person.
Okay,
and Ash, we don't know that he's a synth until what's his name beats his head off with a fire extinguisher.
That'll do it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Did you have more? Or?
No. I'm musing over what that means.
Gotcha.
Like they've really introduced the binary. If the two new elements here are the two versions of a halfway between man and machine, the sampler and the electric guitar, right? Which one's which, right? Which one is better? Which one is more preferable? Which one is closer to human, right? Which one maintains, like if the kids feel a longing for their humanity and want to still experience that humanity, but the cyborgs don't, like, are all of them like Morrow, where they feel like a sort of bitterness for their human parts? That's fascinating. Or is this just a guy who's lost everything and doesn't care anymore for what he used to be and doesn't care for what he used to be? What can we infer about cyborgs as a format? Maybe nothing. Maybe they're all like that, and that's part of why they phase out in the rest of the Alien series. They don't catch on. Maybe this technology, in the 75 years since he's been gone, they haven't been making more of them, right?
Yeah, maybe they're too
everybody regrets
unreliable.
becoming
Maybe weaponizing humans in this way became too unreliable because he doesn't follow orders, as Yutani finds out.
And then I also wonder, and this came up in the conversation with Babu Sise on the official podcast, was it painful to become a cyborg?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was the physical process of becoming a cyborg? And I think when he attaches the leads to his temples, that's when he becomes a monster, right? The lights are flashing, he's sweating, he's dealing with the pain of the download, and we really get this representation of the monstrosity that he has to exist with. But then I think about, well, how are they storing that data in his mind? Does he have a hard drive in there? Does he have phantom pain symptoms when they cut off his arm to put the mechanical arm? Yeah, he can control it. But how old was he when that happened? And because then the neurological structures of that hand are still in his brain, right? He has the phantom limb syndrome.
There's a great touch just throughout his download scene. Like, I love that this conversation is happening while he's downloading all of the information, and it is taking a physical toll on him. He is sweating. It seems uncomfortable. And then compare that to one of the synths like Kirsch, who's just reading and just downloading everything and absorbing it.
He stomped in though. He clipped onto his arm.
No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But even like if he's clipped in, like it's still, he's not sweating. He's
right.
just taking it all in.
Point.
But the cyborgs, it is taking a toll on him to absorb all of this information. So it's even that is a visual, physical framing for the conversation that he's having. Just
economical storytelling.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I have a mini book report, so indulge me for a moment. I mentioned this earlier, a Hungarian author by the name of Arthur Kessler, who was born in 1905 and passed away in 1983. He wrote a book in 1967 called Ghost in the Machine. Kessler wasn't a philosopher, but he used his personal history and his personal interests to synthesize a lot of philosophical thoughts and feelings on the human condition. He worked for the British in anti-communist propaganda, sort of Cold War era stuff. Obviously, he saw directly the effects of the World War II, being from Hungary. And so this book, I remember reading it when I was a young college aged man and sort of intellectually, trying to, stretch myself. You can see I still have I found my copy. It's dog-eared and all of the highlights are faded over the years. But it's a fascinating book because he's critiquing the sensibility at the time of reductionism and this mind-body dualism question. That the consciousness, the ghost, is a separate entity of the body, that they can be separated and reduced into two components on their own. And he's in line with another guy named Gilbert Ryle, who was critiquing dualism at the time. And so he takes Ryle's word ghost and titles his book Ghost in the Machine. And part of what Kessler is dealing with here is he's watching humanity go through the worst of what humanity can do, namely as encapsulated in World War II and all of the horrors and that war represents from all the sides. Like, we went down to a dark place as a species. And so he's trying to understand, why are we self-destructive? Why do we have these tendencies where the ghost leads into paranoia and violence and insanity? And he starts to come up with these concepts. He has this idea of the holon, which is this, I can't really explain it. It's been so long, and I'm trying to download the Wikipedia article into my brain yesterday as I'm furiously prepping for this episode. But that the construction of the brain and the ghost they're not independent of each other, but they arise together. And that but one is a product, but at the same time, this other part becomes higher and higher order than the baser parts. So there are these, and I'm not necessarily agreeing with this, right? I'm just trying to describe this book, where there's this inherent conflict where we have a base, quote unquote, base nature, violence, and again, going into the H.G. Wells of it all in the Island of Dr. Moreau, trying to suppress animalistic urges. And then he gets into this, he asks questions about AI and human consciousness. He specifically talks about, well, what would happen to a real person if you divorced them from, their consciousness from the body? What would that look like? And so, and in this book, he's searching for meaning and remedy and trying to understand, our position in the world. And I don't see Hawley specifically referencing this or dropping, like you were saying, Mark, any straight line, like, hey, Dr. Moreau and Morrow, right there. I'm drawing, Maginot, I'm like drawing straight lines. He's not, but this is an underlying condition. This is an underlying context that I don't know that a lot of people know about this book or this author, but it came rushing back to me as I was watching this, and I felt I had to, use my use my microphone for the power.
Do it. Let that flag fly.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that speaks to anything, but I just keep going back to this idea of synths, guitars and synthesizers and samplers, and what Hawley is doing and bringing forward these issues. And then we talk about, there's the line that Morrow says, would you harm others or allow them to be harmed? So now we're starting to open the conversation of violence between these different types of organisms. Mm-hmm. And that's clearly a shout out to the robotics laws of Isaac Asimov. All right, I monologued a bunch. Anybody have any thoughts? No.
Well, it's what is the self, right?
Yeah.
I think that we have a central nervous system, and that nervous system is, includes the brain, but the brain is only one part of it, right? So like the whole idea of can our consciousness exist out of our body in and of itself is right there a massive philosophical distinction. And the show is possibly going to give us an answer on some level, because we have these two sort of hybrid with a lowercase h, the hybrids and the cyborgs. And not only which one of them is more human, but which one of those, what is the definition of self there, right? Like Morrow may have his actual brain, his original brain.
I think so.
Clearly Wendy does not. But is she, like, we don't know yet which one of them is the most similar to their original self. And I don't know how much of that like relates really to, but the idea of dualism, like this, I almost feel like the show is telling us that these things have been split, but that doesn't quite work. Like there's a unity that they kind of want to be unified, that there's something kind of unwholesome about the fact that they've been split. And so I don't know if he's coming down on one side of that debate from the 1960s philosophically or whatever, but I don't know. We're how many episodes in this show?
3.
8. We're 3 into 8. Yeah.
And possibly multiple 5 seasons, right?
Correct.
Like, is this something that's is the arc of this story working out a lot of these discussions, or are they going to telegraph kind of some of these things by the end of this season? It's fascinating to have so many of these musings 3 episodes deep. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, deep work.
All right, I have probably about 20 bullet points that that I'm just going to leave on the table here for future. But Ian, I want to throw it to you to bring us in, Kirsch rolling in on this scene. What did you, because you said you're really enjoying Timothy Oliphant this season. Man. Cool and calm, he strolls in.
There's a confidence when Gandalf arrives, when Captain Picard arrives on the bridge, when a character with confidence arrives in a scene and saves the day. And his arrival and the confidence that he arrives with, having not really a great clue about what this cyborg is or how dangerous it is so comforting to me, and it's so fun to watch a character be confident like that. And this is just, for me, another example of the writing just being super, super sharp, and that efficient storytelling you were talking about as well. It's the whole exchange with this ship is an object, not a location. It was booted. It's a ball. It was booted into the neighbor's yard.
First of all,
I'm the neighbor. I just love that. First of all, let's get it right. And it's that matter of factness that the way that he speaks. I'm obviously going to make a lot of Star Trek references. It's like Lieutenant Commander Data. The way Brent Spiner delivers his lines as an android is so unique. And Timothy Oliphant is doing his version of an android, and I 100% believe it. I 100% believe that he dreams of Electric Sheep. He is inhabiting this character so incredibly well. And not trying to be like an android emulating a human. It's an android just emulating life, just trying to be whatever it is he is inside. All of that writing is incredible. When the kids, when the cyborg, I've immediately forgotten his name, Morrow.
Sorry, yeah, I've done it now.
Says, these are the kids. Are you the parent? And he's just like, no, but they immediately run behind him. Is just every shot, every scene is so deliberate, and I love that. Nothing is taken for granted. Every action, every movement, the blocking, the writing is just so satisfying to watch. And this is why we're spending, I think, 17 hours talking about this episode, is because
and
there's
this
so much
scene.
and this scene in particular, because there's so much to unpack.
Mark, any reflections on Oliphant? Are you a fan of his at all, or is this a new exposure to his performance?
Pretty much new exposure. And I feel like we made reference to Tyrion earlier, and there's something about the just like commanding the room aspect, but it's like if you took that kind of confidence, but it's not a show. Like a lot of times a character with bravado, or like it's a shield against things. And I just think it's palpable, his lack of fear of death, right? For clear reasons, right? There's confidence that doesn't come. It's not confidence that's hiding fear or anything. It's confidence just from the self-evident truth of the things that he's trying to explain to you. That is so fun to watch. And so, yeah, I love this character. I feel you, and you have so much empathy. I know Boyd Cavalier's not in this scene, but just the clowns that he has to deal with make me feel empathy for this character that maybe doesn't even want empathy or feel like need that.
He doesn't need your empathy.
He doesn't care. Maybe he's not capable of feeling empathy either, but it's really fascinating. I don't have a lot to say beyond that.
I love the contrast between Morrow, who is driven by fear and passions and sense of loss and regret. Because I think we learn later that he's at some point that he's an orphan, or that he was an urchin, a street urchin or something like that, and he's saddled with the worst parts. Where the clear contrast is Kirsch, who's not sweating,
and Morrow was previously controlling the scene.
Yeah,
and then suddenly, with the flick of a android switch, he is no longer in control.
Brilliant.
He's being, but not like manipulate, just being controlled essentially by this synth, and it's actually kind of terrifying. If you think about that, it's fun to watch, but to be out charismaed by a thing that doesn't have any charisma. Like he doesn't have charisma. Like it's not a thing. There is no animal magnetism to him. But yet his force of will is really astonishing. It's
for
really
a being
fascinating
that should
to
not
watch.
have will. Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
really interesting.
Exactly.
That's a great point. I love that.
It's a really tough balance to find as well, because I get the impression that Kirsch will be fine whatever the outcome is. Like, he doesn't seem fully invested in however this shakes out, because he's an android and he'll just deal with it. And yet he's still aiming for an outcome. So he's still aiming to protect the kids and aiming to get rid of or capture Morrow and do well by Boy Cavalier. But there's still this detachment to, well, if it doesn't turn out, it doesn't turn out. So that's that lack of motivation paired with having a mission that's such a weird juggling act to pull off.
Self-aware tool.
Yes.
That's terrifying.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
The hammer knows that it's hammering.
And we're going to come up to the montage scene here in a moment, but there's a part of the montage where Kirsch gets the information that Morrow hasn't been found. And he just goes, okay, that's a piece of data, right? He is unmoved by it, even though he takes it in, which I think goes to your point, Ian. So,
yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
Speaking of the montage, let's take another quick break, and then we're going to get into the... This episode was weird, and then it got weirder, and I love it. And we're going to get into one of the very cool scenes of this. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, montage time. And for this montage, we have a piece of music that as it played, I was like, oh my God, that's Maggot Brain.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, but no, it's not Maggot Brain. And it really did my head in. And I took 30 seconds of the original song and 30 seconds of the, Mark, I was channeling you through this. I took 30 seconds of the Jeff Russo song called Procession, which is what we hear in the television show.
Russo being the show composer.
Thank you. And just really quickly, Funkadelic was a band in the 70s. George Clinton, P-Funk All-Stars, all that. This is their third studio album that was released in 1971 called Maggot Brain. And we can talk about it in a minute, but I want to play this audio clip really quick so that you guys can hear that Russo is doing a direct one-for-one rendition of this song.
Way to turn that into a lullaby.
So much to talk about here. But Mark, I just want to give you props, because what inspired me to put these two clips together was you were the wind under my wings as I put this together and was trying to analyze what time section to pull out and how to do it and everything like that.
I've infected you.
Yes.
Props to you, though, David, because I didn't even know this wasn't Maggot Brain until I was looking at the show notes. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? And I listened and I'm like, oh no, that's a sound-alike.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a thing, like a whole thing. Like, I mean, if you go on the website of a composer that composes music for commercials, for example, they'll have like a demo where they're like, here's me sounding like Sugar Ray from the 90s. Here's me writing a song in the style of Celine Dion or Mariah Carey. Like, people do sound-alikes in the TV industry, and yet here it is instead of a needle drop.
Yeah.
They didn't use Maggot Brain when clearly they're trying to use Maggot Brain. This is impersonating a human. Like, why? Why didn't they? They used Metallica. That was expensive.
Yeah.
They used Tool. That was expensive. Why not Funkadelic? I'm super curious. Did they say anything on the official pod about
I have found no references. I have searched high and low, and I cannot find anybody saying anything about this officially as to why. And I don't know. Is it because they couldn't get the rights to it? Is the estate not available? I have no idea why. But that's I think a important question to ask. Is it better that it's the sound-alike version, or would it have been too much if it had been the original Funkadelic version?
Yeah, I mean, not to hijack, and I don't know if Ian wants to talk on this.
No,
topic,
this is you're not hijacking anything. This is
you're
the
music
discussion.
guy. You do. I know Jeff Russo wrote the score for Strange New Worlds. I'm out.
Are you familiar with Funkadelic or Maggot Brain? Or?
Absolutely not. Not at all. No.
Okay. This is I remember the first time I heard this thing, and I remember the journey that we were already on when I heard this thing.
Fair.
But I would encourage anyone. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube. It's available on all things. Go look up Maggot Brain and then listen to. It's about 9.5 minutes long.
Nice.
And the story behind it is that Clinton told the guitarist, and I apologize, I forget the guitarist's name off the top of my head.
Eddie Hazel.
Thank you. Said, imagine. Sorry, little trigger warning here for death of parent. But imagine your mother dying, and then I think there's a part to it, and then learning later that she's not dead or something. I'm not sure the whole story, but imagine that, and then let that response come out in the music. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff around George Clinton's personal life, the name of the title. There's a whole long Wikipedia article that you can go get, but definitely take a listen to the music. But Mark, let's go back to the question of the sound-alike versus the original.
Okay, so there's so much there. First of all, if they couldn't get the rights, like, okay, I don't know if George Clinton is litigious in the same way that, or keeps, like Prince, when Prince was alive, and probably the Prince estate was famously very guarded. Prince would never allow Weird Al to do a parody, for example. Very guarded about the use of the IP, right?
Okay.
So let's say Funkadelic and maybe George Clinton is like that. Oh, I don't want you to use my music in this movie, in this TV show. If that's the case, this song is too close for the lawyers.
Yes.
To allow them to do it. And I don't want to pilfer my own content too much, but Nicole and I, spoiler for Nevermind the Music, we are going to have a big conversation about copyright and authorship and plagiarism at some point in second season of our show.
Cool.
And not to spoil too much, but there have been cases where, according to actual copyright law in the United States, the only thing that can be copyrighted is melody and lyrics, not chords, not vibe. There have been courts that have found people guilty of plagiarism because of vibe, even though the law says otherwise. So, for example, that song Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke and Pharrell was found to be plagiarized off of Marvin Gaye. Even though the melody and the lyrics are 100% distinct, it has the same groove, which the Copyright Act of 1923 says should not be protected. So I say all that to mean this is so close, even if the exact notes aren't the same. If Funkadelic was litigious, there's no way they could get away with it because it's so close, right? That the risk of getting that one judge in Los Angeles County or whatever that doesn't like plagiarism would be too great. So that tells me there's another reason. And I don't know, because this song, so Maggot Brain, of course, the full album is very famous, but this song is one of the most famous guitar solos in all of, the last 50, 70 years of music. Right?
It's a Dark Side of the Moon for the funk world.
Right. But the song isn't funk, right? And
right.
Funkadelic is interesting because they're like, if Parliament and Funkadelic, so they're sort of the same band with two sides on some level. Parliament was much more funk, soul, R&B. Funkadelic had a lot of the sort of psychedelic rock influence, and synths. And I find it interesting because Bernie Worrell is his name, is the synth player on that album and in that band. And there's so many cool synths. He's also David, you strike me as a Talking Heads guy.
No? Funnily,
Stop Making Sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, part of my life and it's right. appreciated, but I never dug into it in that same way.
So Bernie Worrell from Funkadelic plays with Talking Heads on Stop Making Sense, the live film. And it brings so much, but he's not in this song. So to the previous conversation about synths and sampling, this is Funkadelic with none of the synths. This is a human being emoting through electric guitar. And that's basically all it is. In the original Maggot Brain, the guitar is so loud in the mix versus the drums and bass and stuff like that.
Apparently he mixed down the rest of the band so that the guitar was a step or two forward.
Right. And if you listen to the full track, there's all these moments where there's like echo and delay and weird processing that George Clinton added. And none of that is in the Russo version. It's cleaner. And so to me, Maggot Brain Original almost engages with our questions of what's real, what's human, what's manipulated stronger than the sort of more straightforward sound-alike. And so I'm so confused as to why. I mean, it sounds cool, but I feel like it works stronger if they just use Maggot Brain. And I would be fascinated to hear why they didn't. So yeah, those are my reaction on this.
Is that if they had used actual Maggot Brain, I would have been clicked into a different frame of reference and I would have been clicked into the needle drop. Oh my God, I can't believe they used that song. Where with the sound-alike, I was like, oh my God, is that Maggot Brain? And that they didn't do it and that they're paying an homage, it works better for me. But then you start talking about synths and samplers and, cyborgs and synths, and hybrids. I'm like, oh, are they actually playing on that level of recreating something that is so well known that we all were like, we had to check ourselves. And do I trust? Because a lot of people just think it's just straight up Maggot Brain. They have not realized that this is synthetic.
Right, that was me. Yeah.
No, I mean in the world, on the internet, other podcasts have not picked up on the fact that this is not the original Maggot Brain composition.
If they were trying not to draw attention to it, though, and make it feel like a needle drop, in the same way that if like Tom Hanks walked in the middle of one of the scenes, you'd be like distracted. Why is Tom Hanks in the show?
Yes, exactly.
Then why do we hear Wherever I May Roam by Metallica? Why did we hear these are very for like my generation, that is Maggot Brain in the sense of like, I remember the first time I heard that, right? Yeah. That kind of thing. So I don't know. Like they're having it both ways. This is a question that I think only they could answer.
And I'm curious because Ian, you don't know the song, so you didn't know that it was a needle drop or not. And it's the overlay to the montage, which we're about to talk about in a second. I'm curious your reactions at this point, both your reflections on hearing the music for the montage, not knowing it's a song, and then what are you picking up from?
So just from hearing the clips that you played back to back.
And sorry, the opening, beginning, that weird thing that, I've tasted the maggots of the mind of the, Mother Earth is pregnant. That is the beginning of the original Maggot Brain song. So it starts that, and then it goes into the guitar solo. And that is George Clinton speaking those lines.
Oh, it's so interesting. All of those lyrics are incredibly apt for the show.
And that's the only vocalizing on the song is at the beginning, and then a very 5-second clip at the very end.
Right.
Where Clinton says some more stuff.
Well, just as the lay music person here who enjoys tapping his feet to music, my instinct is that the comparison of the clips that you played is that the Jeff Russo version, for me, just fits the scene better. So it fits the vibe and the ambience of this trippy dream sequence thing, whereas the original Maggot Brain riff is so intense and so piercing, I think that would wake me up from my dream rather than ease me into it. So obviously I come from the movie background side of things. So my bias is going to be what makes a good scene, what makes a good scene composition, and what fits the scene itself. And for me, the Russo version just eases you in and lullabies you a bit more than the harsh meow.
And because Clinton had, like Mark was saying, the way that he processed it, there's these weird echoes and all this weird stuff. Here, let me just play the beginning of it again. So there's all that fuzz and and stuff where the Russo is just clean.
Yeah, it might well be that he loves everything about that song for this scene, but when you play it over the scene, it just didn't feel right for what he was trying to do. So it's like, well, I guess I'll just recompose it and make it the way it needs to be for this scene.
Interesting.
Which for me I think that's a great way to use art. The rights thing is fascinating though. That really is.
And you know when something is art, one of the ways that I think of something as art is when I see its echoes and reflections and inspirations and other things. And there is no question that Maggot Brain maybe is not a commercial success, but it's art because it went into the world and it ate into the minds of so many other creators following its 71 release. Mark, thoughts?
Well, it's like I think it's a Velvet Underground. The quote, it might be a Brian Eno quote about the Velvet Underground that like 10,000 people only bought that first album by them in 67 or whatever. But every single one of them started a band, right? Funkadelic is a lot less mainstream successful than Parliament was, right? And Parliament wasn't pop music, but Give Up the Funk, Tear the Roof Off, what's the name of that song? They have like big hits that are like iconic in the culture, but like the musicians kind of know Funkadelic and know Maggot Brain more, right? And that is very influential to guitar players and stuff like that in a way that is much more than the impact it maybe had immediately in 1971 when it was released.
Exactly, yeah. So let's move on. Let's talk about this montage that we get. And what we'll do is I've got a little sentence describing each thing, and we'll just quickly react to each of these as we go, rather than the whole thing and then trying to react to it. So dawn rising on the city and the crash site, and it's actually sped up, right? We see because the lights of the emergency vehicles are flashing quickly, and that's when we get the sort of lead-in sound. Just beautiful. I don't know, Ian, if you have thoughts on the shot composition and just what we're looking at.
Oh, it's stunning. It's beautiful to look at. You can have all kinds of like hero motifs and anxiety. Just the clips of each child on the ship as well, each dealing with their trauma in their own specific way is fascinating and super efficient.
Yeah. So then we see Siberian and Rashidi. Those are Joe's friends. Siberian is the woman with the red braided hair, and Rashidi is the other soldier that's with her, walking past the container and the bodies of Wendy and Joe. So we get exposition, right? And we bring those two characters, those two side characters, forward into the story, and we see that everything's contained and everything's controlled, and all the people are recording things and whatnot. And then we see the body of the decapitated xenomorph on a tray. Mark, did you react at all to, here's this ultimate killing machine decapitated on a pushcart by a couple of technicians.
It's interesting because we know where this goes. This is going to the dissection and all that, right? And so it's like this momentary it being laid low, but we also know what's going to happen, which is this thing's going to lead to more things. Those eggs are going to hatch. Things are going to go bad. Like this is not, it's a weird, there's a contrast, the image of that thing laid so low and the sort of, comparison to the damaged form of Hermit being dragged around, right? when we know that this is not the end of the story for the Xenomorph. If there's an entire series that's going to keep going where this thing or its descendants, right, the tadpole going in the lung, that tadpole is going to grow into a Xenomorph probably, right? And so that contrast is interesting with Maggot Brain playing. Yeah, this is a really interesting sort of axis in the episode on some level.
Yeah.
In that regard.
So Kirsch gets word that Morrow's not been found, and then the aircraft, some people are calling them wagtails. I don't know if that's the official name. But anyway, the ships take off with Siberian Rashidi and the Xenomorph, and then the cigar-smoking colonel. So we know that those characters this is exposition. Those characters are being advanced into the story, and we're going to see them on Neverland. And then we pan across the Lost Boys, like you were saying, Ian, with all of them sitting in their feelings and trying to process while they're staring at their friend Wendy and this guy Joe, and sort of a modern equivalent of an iron lung. Any thoughts?
Oh, I love the individuality of each kid dealing with it. So Smee is just sat there going, just making mouth noises.
Right.
Why have I forgotten her name? Nibs. Sorry, Nibs. Completely like in her feelings, 1,000-yard stare. Everyone is completely perfect.
Right. So then we get the wagtails land, and we get the I don't know if I can say this word. So the song is called Progression. I can't do it. The name of the song is is a procession, and we get this procession of people coming in, lined up into this room. And there's a shot at the beginning of this where you have a silhouetted figure at the end of the hallway with the light shining behind them, and all these people lined up. It's just another one of these stupid shots that Hawley sets up. Stupid in the best way, I mean.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. And first the Lost Boys come in, and we see Boy K with Ennis, his right-hand man, standing up on the thing. And, Boy K's just there. And then we cut to Wendy, and we do this really interesting camera move where the camera's vertically moving down and then moves horizontally with Wendy underneath. And Boy K gets a little bit more interesting. And then we see Dame Sylvia and Arthur rushing to Wendy's side. And then the soldiers walk in following Joe on the stretcher. So we see them advance. And then we get the procession of specimens. And Mark, that's when Boy K gets really interested, and he crouches down and he leans forward, and he's really on edge when the Xenomorph is brought in.
Are we in the scene where he hasn't had a conversation?
No, this is
about this yet.
Yeah, this is where they're just coming in.
I'll hold my thoughts until that point then.
Okay.
Yeah.
But clearly,
we know what he's thinking though.
Character storytelling, right? The fact that Boy K's, okay, the kids are back, fine. Wendy, should be fine. But the body of a Xenomorph, bro.
This is Christmas.
Yeah.
His Christmas presents all arrived, and he didn't realize it was even December.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And just, again, the montage with the music, and it's just so beautifully done. And it's such a smart, efficient way to tell this story, to get us from the crash site back to Neverland. And then to tell us, people are in their feelings, and it's weird. And now these other soldiers, we're going to see Rashidi and Siberian come into play at some point, because why show them if they're not part of it?
Yep.
All right, so let's move to the next scene. These are sort of 3 short scenes, so hopefully we'll get through these real quick. Does Boy K have a heart? As Arthur and Dame Sylvia work on Wendy, they're confronted by Boy K, who wants to know if she will be fine. Ian, Arthur does not grow a spine.
No, he doesn't. It's interesting that we see people challenging him, because Kirsch is doing this as well in the next scene. Why are you chasing after this shiny thing? When we've just done this incredible thing that's 10 years worth of research, and you're ditching this toy for the next present that you've opened instead of focusing on the breakthrough that we've just had. So I think that it's absolutely fascinating because it highlights Boy K's impatience. Everything that he's trying to do is to skip evolution, because Evolution is moving far too slowly for his liking. His own brain has failed him because he's no longer a prodigy. He's a grown-up. His brain is now stuck in its adult phase. He's had to resort to creating children in adult bodies to try and progress further, which I would guess is him trying to get to the next level of evolution or immortality. And then bam, you've got aliens, and maybe they are the next step in evolution. And his frustration is, I will pursue all of these things and all of these avenues at once. You plebeians can just try and keep up with me. I don't have to focus on one avenue. I can do all of them all at the same time. And damn it, one of them's going to be the thing that saves me. So this really brought into focus for me what this combined with the conversation he has with Curly earlier, where he talks about, do you know why child prodigies are prodigies? It's because they're children. Like, the only reason they're a genius is because they're doing this complicated math as a 6-year-old. Functionally, what they're doing isn't super impressive when you give it to an adult. But if our brains could keep that pluripotency and elasticity that allows the brain to be malleable and to learn new languages quickly, if we can find a way to keep that, because I can just feel that his body has failed him. He's like, yeah, my brain I'm a genius, but I'm not a kid anymore. So I'm as genius as I'm going to get. His impatience is just seeping out.
The natural progression of the brain to shed neurons and to restrict down and to just fire on the patterns that we've developed rather than continue to explore and expand.
And he's reached that now. He's peaked, and his urge to find beings that are smarter than him or as smart as him, I think is ultimately self-serving. Because if I'm the smartest person I know and I can't figure out immortality, I'm going to have to create smarter people.
Interesting. Mark, I noticed Dame Sylvia rushing or expressing some guilt as a parent, right? Like, oh, it's all my fault. And, so they're clearly showing her as this human emotional core.
I saw that, and I also have to call bullshit. Like, there's so much unethical aspects to what they're doing and what they have voluntarily helped create, that for her to be like, oh, but shouldn't we give them a chance to experience adolescence? What? Oh, don't you feel like the time for that conversation was 5 years ago in the dev process. Like, the time for that conversation was when you rejected the offer letter to work for this company. So, like, as much as I like those characters as kind of a signpost of how bad Boy Cavalier is, also, like, they're the Nazi collaborators, so to speak. Like, not to go there, but like, they are enablers.
Collaborators,
to all of this.
Enablers and
they
collaborators.
Are collaborators to something that's probably evil, right? And maybe
or could be used for
good.
Evil.
Certainly might be used for evil in any moment in this series, right? So, and I don't know, I shouldn't demonize it necessarily, but like my sense for and maybe this is me being frustrated with certain aspects of our modern world, but my sense for them to be like, oh, that doesn't seem right. Should we do that? I'm like, you all had a chance to stop this, probably, or to inform it. Presumably, Boy Cavalier was 15 at one point when he hired you, probably. And maybe you could have been a little more of an adult at that point and helped him grow into a more sympathetic person. And I'm actually struck, this doesn't really answer your question, but the idea of what is a prodigy, when we think just colloquially, music is a thing we often think of when you talk about a prodigy. When someone says a prodigy, yeah, maybe they're a math whiz or a art whiz, but often you think of a pianist or something like Mozart, right? A prodigious musician. And most prodigies burn out and don't become professionals. Or if they are professionals, they're not professionals of much merit. And I have one colleague in particular that was a child prodigy who is now playing at a high level. And he is kind of the exception that proves the rule in a sense, where like oftentimes that transition from I'm doing this thing that is impressive, not just because it's good, but it's impressive because it's so good on such a young kid. When that young kid aspect gets removed, I think people struggle to find meaning and find identity, to say nothing of sometimes a child prodigy maybe has toxic relationship with the craft because of their parents and the media attention anyways.
Right.
That we're seeing that this guy doesn't really have like maybe he doesn't have a lot of meaning in the work anymore. And there's something broken in him because he didn't successfully navigate being a 13-year-old boy genius who founded some company, let's say, to being a 25-year-old. He didn't necessarily navigate that in a way that's left him much emotional health, maybe, and intellectual health.
Yeah.
Even, despite his smarts.
We learned, picking up some of the details of the history of Prodigy as a company. Morrow later, he's reading some, he did sort of whatever their version of the internet is, some searching. And then some other information. It sounds like Boy K founded Prodigy. I can't say it now. Podcaster mouth. Founded the company when he was like 6 years old after the death of somebody important to him. So he joins these four other companies. Well, he joins 3, becomes 5 really quickly because Lynch and Prodigy join nearly at the same time, I think, if I'm reading the articles right, to the original 3. But that he's driven by the death of something. He is a child prodigy, but I think you're right that when he sees Curly and Curly's interest, he's like, oh, there's something's rekindled in him in this direction.
That's a problem. I know we're going to get to that. But
yeah, it is a problem. I just realized that I forgot to write down the scene description for the next one, which is called Lockdown. I was furiously trying to prep yesterday. Just quickly, Boy K comes into the lab. I'm doing this extemporaneously. Comes into the lab, gives Curly and Toodles attaboy to them, talks with Kirsch about the discoveries, and Kirsch ultimately pushes them out of the lab saying these are parasites and you don't want to get infected by one. And he brings up this interesting line, undiscovered country, which, of course, is a reference to Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1. And Hamlet's talking about death. The undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. But it's also used in another context.
I offer a toast. The undiscovered country. The future.
The undiscovered country. Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1.
You have not experienced Shakespeare until you have read him in the original Klingon.
Ian, that's for you.
Yeah, I don't remember that reference. I don't know what that is. Not
David,
familiar with that content.
Damon's famously a massive hater of Star Trek 6.
Yeah, it's weird that you'd put it. Was that the third Star Wars movie? I can't remember. Yes, I immediately thought about Star Trek. Of course, when I got to that, even though Star Trek was obviously taking that from the original Klingon author, Shakespeare. But it does raise an interesting point because in that scene in Star Trek, The Undiscovered Country, that conversation at the dinner table is about humanity. And they're talking about how the Klingons need breathing room. And Bones says I think it's Bones that says something along the lines of, where's your humanity? And one of the Klingons replies and says, what do you mean, where's my humanity? That's such a racist term. We're Klingons. We don't have humanity. So I, of course, in my Star Trek brain, like to interpret this scene from Noah Hawley's perspective, as we know he's a Star Trek fan as well to some degree, as redefining humanity as well. Like what they don't play up too much is, oh my God, there are aliens out there. Like that's kind of a given. And
all throughout the Alien, sorry to interrupt you, all throughout the Alien franchise, it's never like, oh my God, aliens. They're like,
there's life outside.
That's interesting.
It's almost like they've scanned it already from Earth and they know it's there and now it's just a matter of bringing it home. But I like to see that scene as, redefining humanity and probably throwing out the word entirely.
And even though Hamlet's use is about death, Boy K is using it about the future here, which is what the Star Trek references as well.
It's such an awkward line, though. Like, it has to be, and I think the writing in the show is great, but it has to be a reference because I wrote it down. It was that striking. He says, new life forms with acid for blood, like an undiscovered country. I'm pretty sure that's the full line. Maybe I missed a couple words, but that's such an awkward, like, description.
Segue.
It's a segue. Like, is that a simile? No, it's a simile. It's like wait, the acid is? Or I know he's talking about the future. He's talking about this new, at some point, I mean, think about it yourself. Like, would you go to work tomorrow if, like, aliens showed up? Like, what is more important than this thing that they just dragged into his lab? Like, it is more important than his hybrid stuff, maybe. But it's such a strange line that it has to be either a reference to Shakespeare or to Star Trek or both.
And I wouldn't put it past Holly to be both.
Yes.
Right. Sure.
So my last thought on this scene is, did Kirsch lie to Boy K? Because he says, how do you know that they're parasites? He says, I saw it near the security officer and it reacted. But he has the files in his head. So I just wonder, I don't know if that's a discrepancy or if that's just me hunting shadows.
That may not have been in the files, because I think once that happened on the Maginot, it was too late to be taking any more records.
That's a good point.
So by the time they observed that, their scientific research probably would have been cut short.
Suspended?
Yeah, suspended indefinitely. What struck me in that scene is just the eyeball move when Boy K is over the egg. And Kirsch just waits long enough to see what happens before stepping in. It's like, this is my guinea pig. And I love that so much because Boy K at the beginning obviously slams him and says, I thought you were an android, but clearly you're a man. And this is just a beautiful turn of the table. It's like, no, I'm using you as a test subject here.
Yeah.
But fully knowing that I can remove you from the room safely. You've served my purpose now. So I love the confidence with which he still has the reins.
And it goes back to that confidence thing that you guys were talking about before when he's so confident in the scene. And we know that Boy K is not a synth now. We know that he's human.
Right.
Yeah.
And he gets rattled. The lock it all down moment, he has been rattled by a sudden realization of his own mortality, I think, looking at this thing.
Yeah.
The moment it starts to, you don't know what he's going to do when it starts to move. And then he backs up and he says, lock it down. And I think he's realized what was, he's very smart, but maybe not very perceptive, but he perceives enough in that moment, I think, to know that was about to go bad.
Yeah. I love to think that is Kirsch letting him perceive just enough to put him in charge. Like, I'm going to feed you just enough fear to put me in charge of this whole product or this whole project, because I want to be the one that's investigating it. I'd love to think that he manipulated that reaction.
I like that. All right, next scene. Will you catch him? Mr. Ennis comes to talk to Slightly and Smee to clear up a detail about what Morrow said to Slightly. The boys are worried as Kirsch watches from another room. So here they are processing their feelings, drawing pictures and playing with airplanes. And clearly Ennis is not a parent. He has no ability to reassure that these children, his response is very adult and rational and not emotional. Yeah. And then I think Smee does something really interesting, which is he goes over and comforts his friend.
Oh, it's adorable. Yeah. Absolutely adorable.
Yeah.
He's information gathering. He's what did you experience that I can't pick up on the security footage as the Boy K security person. Like, you have information I need. I'll do away with the pleasantries. I do want to echo what Luke said in the first episode, which seeing Adrian Edmondson as a Brit is quite jarring.
Oh, that's right.
It was jarring for me as well.
It'd be like Robin Williams playing a heavy security officer or something.
Even more than that, my analogy in my head is like Steve-O from Jackass playing Varys. Like, that's the leap in my head, like having him play Varys in Lord of the Rings. Like, that's how weird it is to see Adrian Edmondson in this role. So I'm like, it's okay. Actors can be actors. Put it to bed. But every Brit, most Brits that grew up in the 80s or 90s will be like, that's a choice.
That's a great comp, Steve-O to Varys. That's perfect. Right. Mark, anything for this, or we can move on?
No, We got it.
Oh, the one thing I did want to mention was we get we record everything through your retinal cameras. Oh, I don't know if I like that. And then I've seen some comments of like, well, why don't they know what's going on with these kids? Who's going to watch a real-time stream of every single thing, right? You're going to, so there's...
They'd have to automate that somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And something that we didn't talk about in the previous in the scene before when Boy K is talking to Sylvia and Arthur, that they shut down her hardware remotely. So there's all these little world building and details about the synthetics that they're just dropping in here and there that are important details. Why is it in there? Because it's important at some point for us to know these things. All right, let's take a quick break, and then I think we'll be able to finish up the last few scenes, and hopefully keep this podcast under 3 hours. I think with with the commercials, it might push 3 hours. So apologies, everyone, but obviously it's just too good to not dig into it. We'll be right back. And we're back. All right. Morrow walks the streets of New Siam, grabs a bite, and borrows a phone to call home. He uses his code word clearance and speaks to Yutani. Morrow doesn't recognize her, as she is the granddaughter of the woman that used to run the company. What did you pick up in this, Ian?
The main thing, I think we alluded to it earlier, was that he's not taking orders. So he's commanded to come back home. You've done enough, bring it in. And he's like, no, this is my mission. This was really a courtesy call or a little bit of a mental block that he didn't realize that the person he spoke to is most likely dead by now. So the little bit of a mental lapse there for the cyborg, possibly showing his human side. So yeah, I think that's what it is, that he's now not just with Wayland Yutani, he is on his own mission.
Got it. Mark, anything in this scene?
I mean, I feel like we've covered sort of his reality quite a bit. I think, again, with the economic world building, just like knowing the breadth and the size and the age of this company through just a few lines, and you realize how long he's been gone, and Prodigy didn't even exist. You know, Boy K didn't even exist when he left. And like who is he loyal? Like, he's gone his own mission, but like the person that gave him that mission isn't even alive anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So it's just, the scope of this whole world is just blown up by conversations. Like, he's blown up in terms of expanded.
And again, economical story. Just the compression is masterful, and the efficiency. A couple of things I noticed. There was a lot of Blade Runner vibes. He's in sort of an adult facility. Well, he eventually goes to it, but we get a sort of a cyberpunk town. Boy K face on billboard pictures on buildings. I thought the way that he snatched the food and the phone really shows his life as a street urchin prior to becoming the security officer. So there's questions of loyalty, like, oh, if he started from there and then Yutani's grandmother was the one that brought him up, I think that raises some interesting questions. There's a really weird little scene as he's walking through the market. Somebody's got a monitor, a TV, is clearly playing over his shoulder in the background, and it's a couple of guys using sticks, sort of a stick fighting technique. I don't know that form of martial arts, and I was just wondering if anybody knows what movie that's from, because I'm curious like that, because obviously we have some other things. And then last two things, that line, these creatures are my life's works. That's when I really got the Dr. Moreau, H.G. Wells vibe right there. That's when it cemented for me. And then as he's walking across the bridge, the shot lingers on this post with this device on a post as a ship as one of these little riverboats is going past underneath. And we hold on that for like a full second of this device. So I wonder, was that like a camera, or is that something they're going to use to track Morrow later? Like, that's the way they're going to find him. So, All right, let's play. While Boy K is playing with Legos and reviewing the data files and the species, which means that Kirsch has uploaded the files to the Prodigy systems. I thought for a while that maybe Kirsch held on to them and that Prodigy didn't have it, but that means they're transferred. Because then you were going to have 2 androids that have the only 2 copies of this data. So Curly comes to talk to him and ask why Wendy is his favorite and that she has ideas about how to make the world better. Mark, do you throw out the first pancake?
I don't, and I wish I did.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so much less. I like the crispy outer ring, and you never get that on that first pancake.
Right.
I think we're meant to kind of I feel like we're meant to not like the ambition coming out of Curly, but I just, oh man, Boy K just feels so terrible. Garbage person.
Grooming alert.
Conversations.
Yes.
Yeah, grooming, and the fact that she either, the charitable, what I hope is that she's using him she's smart enough and ambitious enough to be using him as a stepladder to take over this company. But maybe she just wants his approval also, and I just hope not, because
she says,
she's a garbage person.
Am I your favorite at the end?
Yeah.
And she's excited.
But I'm hoping she's using him and manipulating him, but I don't know if she has enough emotional intelligence yet to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this is telling us, one, that there are kind of schisms within the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
But also it's giving more levels of nuance to, I don't know, just how rotten how broken he is. And I should have some empathy for him maybe, but he doesn't see them. He doesn't see their personhood and we've already seen that he doesn't see his employees' personhood either. So is he waiting for one of them to reach true sentience on some level? It's so strange to me, how toxic his sort of attitude towards the rest of the world is.
Yeah. Ian, did you pick up on the creepy hallway cleaner in the background of this scene?
Oh, I couldn't stop thinking about him, and they keep popping up throughout the first 3 episodes, and there was this zoom in on the breathing apparatus that's on the back of them, and that has a HR Giga feel to it.
Totally.
And the fact that the person is not using the breathing apparatus was really telling to me as he's doing whatever spraying he's doing. And I just have this, it led me down this rabbit hole as well into the memory that I had about Peter Pan and from the book, which is that he would cycle through the Lost Boys. And I wonder if this could be a failed synth, failed hybrid that is now only good for cleaning mold, discarded. So this is a layer of Lost Boys that he culled or killed off, or just has discarded and is now scrubbing the halls. And that it just speaks to how he sees them. They're a means to an end, and Curly is exactly that. She's more interesting to him now because she spoke up for herself. You're rising up the ranks because you're asking these questions and the others aren't.
Right. Arana James is killing it as Curly too. This is the first time we really get to be with her, and she's great. I'm really enjoying her performance. Will you be my friend? Stranger danger warning. Building off the blink and you miss it scene earlier when Morrow takes and I'm calling them comm badges in honor of you.
I clocked it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you did. Yeah. He calls Slightly, who's watching a movie. As Morrow looks up background info on Prodigy, he convinces Slightly to agree to be his friend. I couldn't tell what movie it was that Slightly was watching. I thought it might be Up at one point, but I couldn't.
I couldn't see it even. I forgot to dig deeper into that one.
Okay.
It's probably Ice Age 4 Continental Drift.
So disappointed in Lost Boys. You're just, what kind of podcasters are you?
All right.
There was also some interesting background sounds when Slightly is talking to him and kind of listen. He kind of cocks his head a little bit. So I don't know if that plays into how they're going to track down Morrow later. But there was a really weird vibe because Morrow's in a sex club and Slightly's there watching a movie holding his stuffy. It's like a real jarring moment. But it was also very cyberpunk Blade Runner. Again, those same sort of vibes are there. But I did love the early Netscape style browser, or maybe even Mosaic style internet browser that he was using to read up data on Prodigy. And those are all clear enough that you can freeze frame them and read them. And I talked about them a little bit earlier. It's all about the formation of Prodigy and how it joined the other companies. And it mentions the company Lynch and some other environmental and global things going on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that scene taps into genuine fears that kids have. Like, they can always hear voices at night, and it's so frustrating. But then, no, he actually is hearing a voice at night.
That's a good point.
Just tapping into that childhood fear.
Mark, anything from this scene?
Well, it's the previous scene was grooming, right? And this is
even more.
This is similar, except we know, at least we think we know the motivation. Like, he is trying to manipulate this kid to some end. I mean, we don't know what end yet, but to get information, to get back the creatures, right? That kind of thing. It's like just as bad, but sort of less creepy almost than what Boy K is doing, right? Because he's not thinking about it. I don't think Morrow cares either way. He's like, is it amorality or immorality? I can't remember. The one that's like disregards a moral framework a little bit.
Amorality is like, it doesn't, it's not important.
It doesn't matter, right? And which is a very dangerous thing. And it's, the contrast, the red light district or whatever on the one hand versus the stuffy and watching the movie. That's not an accident, right? That's not just where they happen to turn the camera on, right? And they're slightly, where I was wondering, whoa, is Curly manipulating him? I am not wondering if Slightly is manipulating him. He is buying this hook, line, and sinker. At least I worry that he is, right? Will you be my friend? Okay, like, oh boy, man, like.
Well, and it goes to that whole power imbalance of an adult having an effect. Oh, it's so creepy, right? This is just creepy stuff. And these poor kids, all of these Lost Boys are just being manipulated and used. And I think it goes back to what was it you were saying before about Dame Sylvia. Like, man, your morality went out the window a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
you had your chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real head trip on this level if you really start to think about that.
It's really interesting though that slightly. You mentioned, I think, stranger danger. I feel like when kids are groomed or kids are abused, it normally starts from the perspective of a relative or a friend of the family or something that has a positive, open association that allows the kid to be receptive.
Right.
This started out as a very hostile interaction. Like, I would think that Slightly's first instinct would be fear and distrust of this guy.
It is.
Right? But he's kind of buying it. He believes he's taking it at face value a little more than I almost would think a kid who's 10 or whatever would, but I don't know.
We're getting into an area too of response to threat and to danger and how somebody in different situations responds to these kinds of things. So and that can be a very fraught area of topic. So I'm going to steer us away from that a little bit and go back to acid bleeding aliens. A lot easier to deal with. And maybe Nibs, who's tripping, wandering the halls and looking at herself in the mirror and recalling her inner child wanting to go home. Kind of an Alice in Wonderland meets Peter Pan. A lot of weird stuff here. Water draining, reflection of the child, the smoking guy, like you said before, the breathing apparatus, touching her eyeball. And then the little girl overlap in the mirror, but then her hand was glowing. Like, if you go back to that scene, as she reaches out to the mirror, her hand is white hot glowing, not a weird reflection camera work. They intentionally have ramped up, almost like Morrow's hand in a way that has that translucentness to it.
Oh, that's really interesting. I missed that.
Yeah. I know I put the Voight comp thing in here about the touching the eyeballs. We're just going to leave that whole thing to the side. That's Blade Runner stuff. If we're going to make our under 3 hours, we got to keep rolling here. We're on the final scene. We can almost do it.
I do think Nibs is building to something's going to happen with Nibs very soon.
Yeah, she's going to break.
She's going to break, and where that goes, I have no idea. But I'm really curious to see. This actor has been kind of given, she's doing it well, but given kind of one note to play.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're going to get some kind of an outburst of emotions or something in the next few scenes, episodes. And I'm super interested how this is going to fit in the larger. Is she a symbol or a symptom of something, or is she going to end up kind of an agent of the plot and of the other characters? Like, I'm super curious for this side character that seems to be really building up a lot of potential energy more than some of the others.
Good point.
Yeah.
And it shows this range of psychological responses to a very traumatic thing of having your consciousness moved out of its meat sack into a titanium and whatever they're made of. All right. Final scene. Do androids dream of electric sheep? Wendy wakes and walks the halls to the lab as Kirsch, Curly, and Toodles extract a larval tadpole from a face hugger. At the same time, Joe has his damaged lung removed. As Wendy nears the lab, she's affected by high-pitched chirping and buzzing and squealing that is correlated to the operation to remove the tadpole. As she enters the lab, no one seems to notice her, and she collapses on the ground, overtaken by the sounds. Kirsch takes the tadpole and introduces it to the tank, which is holding Joe's lung. It then buries itself into the lung as Metallica, Wherever I May Roam, takes us into the end credits. Sorry, that was a little bit long of a clip, but I wanted that knocking sound of like the alien pounding on the door. I'm coming in, right? It's such a heavy metal song too. Okay, final thoughts. Mark, why don't you lead us off?
I want to talk about Wherever I May Roam,
please,
for a bit, because it's sort of about this wanderlust, never having a home. But the last line of that song, my body lies, but still I roam. You're meant to wonder about death and about the soul and about out-of-body experiences. And so, like, is this reflecting on these kind of, where is humanity? Where is the spark of life? Or is this telling us, like, I've seen online, looking up stuff on this episode, like, is this real is a question.
Well,
like, how much of this can she project out? Because she can project herself out to control other machines. She can communicate with other things. She's feeling
That's a really good hook. I didn't think about that.
She's feeling the aliens present, but maybe she's just hearing ultrasonic frequencies. There's some connection between her and these eggs. And as this thing is being dissected and killed, this line at the end of the song, which we don't hear, we only hear the sitar opening and the guitar, the metal beginning. But is there something to this song beyond just the roaming kind of implication, that there's something about the out of body experience that is her dissociating into the alien consciousness or something? I don't know. It raises so many questions. And this is a needle drop that was not like,
is this Arena Rock?
The real song? It's very clearly Metallica's. The famous Arena Rock band, Metallica. So yeah, I don't know. It's at first I'm like, oh cool, she's roaming through the aliens, and then when I looked up the lyrics, that there's something about the way that song ends that's means something. Maybe, I don't know.
And there's a line that caught my eye earlier too. The earth becomes my throne. Imagine the aliens taking over the earth, right? There's this threat. So, whatever they're doing with the music choices, they're really having a lot of fun finding the right songs to give us all of these questions and put us into this vibe of like, what is going on? But man, what a way to end an episode. Ian, thoughts?
Yeah, I was. I've managed to hit the same conclusion, but from a different angle.
Nice.
I was so distracted by, first of all, Dame Sylvia not being alerted that she's woken up. There should be I don't know, maybe this is too nitpicky, but I think there should be alarm bells going off that your patient is conscious. The bit of hardware that you control has walked away. And then the quarantine, emphasis on quarantine, doors open without her being recognized, her collapsing without being acknowledged. All of that led me to assume that either this is outright her dreaming or, like you said, an out-of-body experience where she is tapped into the experiences of the alien. Because that technological leap that she can do where she manipulated the robot that was talking to Hermit and gave it new coding, that Wi-Fi, whatever Wi-Fi her brain is using, can it use that to interpret other locations in the base? And just, is she using the computer screens and the recording device to take in all of the information that's happening and then interpreting that into this dream that she's having?
I love that interpretation.
If it ends up not being that, I'm going to be a bit annoyed because there's so much there that is beautiful. And now overlay the Metallica song on top of that as well. There's so much there that seems to be leading to this is an extrasensory perception kind of thing rather than literally she walked in and fell down.
And it goes back to the whole question of what happens to consciousness that's separated from a physical form.
Yes.
And sort of this ghost in the machine question. And getting into this AI world of what happens when a consciousness is loose in the circuits.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how does that consciousness, which was a human consciousness created, how is that going to reinterpret its experience of all these cameras and screens and sensors and things? So maybe Holly is showing us her human consciousness reinterpreting all of this sensory input.
Yeah.
From all this mechanical stuff that's in and around the lab and everything.
Especially if she's currently hooked up to some diagnostic machine that is tying her into the lab at large.
Exactly.
And they've told us not only that she can communicate, like to her brother through the machine, but they've also shown us in this episode that there's some kind of a buzz that maybe that was the previous episode, that the xenomorphs
they've been building
she's
it.
receptive to, right?
Yeah.
So they've given us a lot of information that there's something about her connection that goes beyond what anybody thought should be possible, because it's not happening with the synths, right?
It's happening only with Wendy.
Yep.
Yeah, and only with Wendy, right? Not the other hybrids that we've experienced, which we don't really have a good explanation for how she would be different.
Yeah, correct. They haven't given us any intel as to why her hardware would be different than the other.
Like, is she prototype or slightly different model? This is the first time also we've seen that the face huggers are just a delivery method for something. Am I right about that? That's sorry to change the subject, but that's we're bearing the lead a little bit.
That's the subject.
Yeah.
It's
I think
crazy.
It's been an assumption, but it's hard confirm.
But like they are an assumption in the sense that they are not the nascent xenomorph.
No.
They are a creature that delivers the nascent xenomorph into another creature to gestate, which is crazy.
For the tadpole to metamorphosize, title of the episode, into... And what is, metamorphosis, what is Wendy becoming? If her consciousness is transforming, what is she transforming into at the same time? So Morrow is transforming as well. He's also metamorphosizing into something new.
So if there is a psychic link happening, it feels like she's reacting to the face hugger getting cut up.
Yeah, that's what they're telling us.
But if the face hugger is not the consciousness of the xenomorph, it's the tadpole. So is that the suffering of the face hugger that's calling out to her, or is it the panic of the tadpole calling? Like, it's an interesting kind of where is again, what is the self of the xenomorph? Is the self just the tadpole? Is the self all of it kind of integrated? Is the face hugger like a distinct organism that has a parasitic or a symbiotic relationship with the xenomorph? Like, I don't think we're going to get the answers to these questions, but they're being raised in ways I wasn't expecting, certainly, which is pretty cool, I think.
And deeply satisfying in a way that we're expanding the lore. I don't want canonical answers to who created the xenomorphs and whatever, but this way that I'm real time learning. My world is expanding without answering a canonical question.
Yeah.
I find more fascinating than receiving a canonical answer, like the black goo or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I think we're going to fail. I think Alicia recorded with Brian and Lisa, two of our Lore Master subscribers, who she brought them on to talk about the Gilded Age, and they did sort of a 3-season wrap up, and they were over 3 hours, but with the commercials inserted, and I can't remember what the raw recording time is, and we are now 30 seconds from a raw recording time podcast. So congratulations and condolences for your bladders, for your stomachs. But this was a deeply satisfying conversation, gentlemen. I appreciate both of you sacrificing the time from your lives to talk about this. There are so many notes left in my outline that we didn't even touch, but that's the way it is.
The lung.
Yes, the lung.
The lung.
Why the lung?
The chest bursters come from a lung. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So much.
Or just flesh. It just needs some sort of what's going on.
One of the organs.
Yeah.
Mark, what's happening with Nevermind the Music? You said you have season 2. Yeah, you still have the episodes coming out from season 1, which you guys pre-recorded. You had banked them all up, but then now you're going to going into season 2, where you're going to be changing not format but recording process a little bit.
Some format change because we've got guests and stuff like that, but mostly, we're just not getting way far ahead.
Gotcha.
So only 4 episodes left of season 1, and
amazing. 2
of those are regular episodes. This next one we're doing Post Malone, and then I almost don't want to spoil what the last, but it's the name of the podcast spoils the last artist we cover.
Okay,
but we just recorded our feedback episode, and it's kind of funny. I'm super fascinated to listen back because it's been so long. But think of not next week, but the next thing, the week after that, is our feedback episode, which is our response in real time, essentially, to the audience. But then the last episode of the season is a sort of wrap up we recorded months and months and months ago. So I'm super fascinated to hear like the difference between our reactions yesterday that we recorded actually to human questions versus whatever nonsense we thought was our wrap up content after we had recorded the massive dump almost a year ago. So check us out. And season 2, I think people, a lot of the Discord community has been asking for certain episodes, and we are trying to deliver. So,
excellent. And I'm looking forward to, you are, John and Alicia and I are all going to guest at some point, and we've talked about some fun stuff.
We've got a lot going on, and
okay.
Any
link in the show notes. There's a link tree. Go to that, and then affiliate. Ian, Captain's Pod is covering Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, currently covering Strange New Worlds season 3. We're on we've done up to episode 6. Episode 7 just came out, and we record most of the podcast as a live show on Mondays at 12 p.m. Central Time. And then the actual podcast episode itself, reviewing the most recent episode, comes out on Wednesdays or Tuesdays at the Ian and Danae Patreon. That's me and my co-host. If you want Captain's Pod perks and early access and stuff, head over there. If not, just search for Captain's Pod in your podcast player. And between live seasons of Star Trek, we'll dive into the best and worst episodes of classic Star Trek and see if Danae can survive all of them.
Yeah, we have I've got a title that we're going to record. So because I got robbed by Section 31 when I guested.
Oh, goodness, Section 31. I'm so sorry. So
and then
David will be back to review an episode he wants to review.
Yes, exactly. A proper episode of Star Trek, the original series. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you both so much for coming on. I really had a great time. And in future, send in an email or a voicemail if you want to add something to the future discussions going forward. I don't know how we're going to do any kind of wrap up in the future, but Mark, I definitely would love to talk to you at the end of the season with all the needle drops at the end.
I mean, presumably they're going to keep coming.
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy to think where it's going to go. Yeah.
I believe Hawley has been quoted saying that every episode is going to have one of these, arena rock quotes, scare quotes.
Maybe it'll be actually arena rock on the last episode. It'll be like so telling. It'll be like, I don't know, Queen or something. Yeah. All right.
Exactly.
Cool.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. And we will be back for episode 4 with a couple of our supporters, Brian 8063 and Duve 71. So we'll see you on episode 4. Thanks for joining us for our coverage of Alien Earth Season 1. We hope our conversation has added to your enjoyment of the xenomorphic mysteries and the many layered allegories that Noah Hawley has brought to the series. You can find links to all of our affiliates, our Patreon and Supercast pages, and Discord in the show notes for the episode. Look for the link tree, which has everything. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and series. Send us your feedback and we'll answer and read it on our next podcast. Send emails to avp@thelorehounds.com or send us a voicemail. You can use the voicemail tool on our website, thelorehounds.com/contact, or record a note on your smartphone and email it to us at the same address. If you have enjoyed our approach, please consider supporting independent podcasters like us by subscribing on either Patreon or Supercast. Your support allows us to continue to produce comprehensive podcasts like these for the shows and films that matter most to our community. And at the end, we always like to give a special shout out to our Discord server boosters who help keep our community thriving. Aaron K, Tiller the Thriller, Duve 71, Athena Ajalea, Lestu, Nancy M, Ghost of Perdition, and Radioactive Richard. And our deepest gratitude goes to our Lore Master subscribers whose top-tier support makes everything we do possible. Samartian, Michael G, Michelle E, Brian P, SC, Peter O.H, Adam S, Nancy M, Duve 71, Brian 8063, Frederick H, Sarah L, Gareth C, Matthew M, Sarah M, Andra B, Kwang Yu, Deadeye Jedi Bob, Nathan T, Alex V, Sub-Zero, Aaron K, Dally V, Mothership 61. Gnarls, Kathy W, Lestu, Jeffrey B, Elisa U, Neil F, Ben B, Scott F, Stephen N, Julia F, Kali S, Ilmariel /Tim, Paul K, Bobby C, Jessica H, and always last but never least, Adrian. The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by the Lorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employer or other entities. Thanks for listening.